So I have prepped for once, actually. I've prepped a couple of videos for us to watch while I eat. So we're going to be swapping over to PoE 2 for the day. Let me just get things sorted. Oh, for fuck's sake. Dude, I need a new keyboard, and the worst part is Nina gave me one for my birthday and I just haven't picked one out yet. Just need to figure out which one I want. All right. Yeah. So here we go. We got something going. Let's see. I'm not sure if this. So the Darth microtransaction one was before the reveal. I'm not sure if this one was before as well, or we're gonna get a lot of samey questions. No, it looks like he might. It might be yapping. Like this one, there was one where the interlude acts. How did they manage this? This is yapping. Learning with this ascendancy class is trying to make Jonathan Lee. Wow. Okay. What is the bar to leave? Whatever. We'll see. We'll see.
Path of Exile 2, the Third Edict was just fully revealed.
We have a downed spacecraft.
Okay, Disney. Fucking.
Path of Exile 2, the
okay.
Third Edict was just fully revealed, and I was lucky enough to sit down for about an hour with Jonathan Rogers and fellow content creator Woody Joe to talk to him about 0.3.
What the fuck was that image, bro? Are you kidding me? What did I just witness?
About 0. Jonathan Rogers and fellow content creator Woody Joe.
Dude, that's such a 13-year-old picture from like the early or like the mid-late 2000s. Well, early mid actually 2000s, yeah. That's such an auto. I don't know, you guys probably don't know that site. I think it was a Danish chat size for young people. A lot of pedophiles there as well. Bro,
to talk to him
you could have found something better. That's not okay.
Massive changes within and what the future looks like for Path of Exile 2. I hope you enjoyed this interview. It was a little bit scuffed in an impromptu podcast, so I do not have Woody Joe's video captured, but I do have his audio. As always, all timestamps are in the description below. If you'd like to see more interviews with Grinding Your Games, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the sub notification bell, and leave a comment. It really helps. I think this should be a good one. Woody Joe and I bounce between questions as best as we can, and we both definitely have different vibes. Cannot wait to chat with Jonathan again. I hope the Third Edict goes extremely well. And yeah, we do talk a little bit about the Druid. Jonathan, so out of everything that we just saw, I think what excites me the most is lineage support gems. Where did the idea for that arise? Was that a relatively new concept, something you guys have thought about implementing a while back in Path of Exile 1, or did you just realize, hey, new cool idea, unique support gems, let's put it in PoE 2?
So basically the support gem stuff, like I would say in PoE 2, hasn't been in a great place until now. And I mean, I did explain in the presentation effectively that like the limitation of one support per character just kind of wasn't like, you know, there was something about it that was kind of like working against the other goals that we have, which is the thing with, you know, wanting people to use multiple skills. So effectively we knew we needed to do something there. But it took a little while to kind of convince people that it would actually be okay to allow that. And like kind of as part of those discussions, we were talking about, okay, like what are the issues here? What, like the whole limit to one thing, not having progression, all that sort of stuff. At some point, we're like, you know what? Like, it feels like we need more like going on with the progression of supports. Like, we talked about the levels and that was cool, but then we're like, wouldn't it be cool if there was just something, like towards, in the late game where things really changed up, we could really change how things work. And yeah, that was where the kind of like, what if there were unique supports was kind of, the idea that we had. So as soon as we sort of thought of that, we're like, okay, it'll be cool. Like we're gonna theme all of them around like, hey, what would Lion Eye use if he had a support gem, like that kind of stuff. Like we're thinking about those sort of lore things, and it obviously comes up with a lot of ideas like that. So I mean, it's been a fun one.
I'm a fan. I'll throw it to you, Woody,
Yeah,
if
I
you want
also
to
gotta
bounce.
say I really like the. Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say I really like the idea of those lineage support gems. I think that's a very cool evolution of the system.
I think the lineage support gems are cool. It sounds like they're just better awakened supports, right? Like just more changing. They're just more different than because awakened support gems is just plus 1% more damage and then a little bit more per level, right? And then at level 5 you get something, right? Which is seemingly kind of like how regular support gems are gonna be now. I would love to see them add awakened support gems for PoE 2 as well, just because I think they're fucking cool, and it kind of lets you do something where it's like, yeah, your build is done, right? Now you can get this and get even more busted, right? Like it kind of allows you to put in something that people are not gonna have until they are basically there, right? Like realistically speaking, the only problem is the rarity, right? Because in PoE 1, awakened support gems are somewhat rare, but not that rare. But you can't control which one you get. Whereas in PoE 2, whenever you get a support gem, you can pick which one. So they could make like this Omega Chase support gem, awakened support gem, that it's not going to compete with the lineage supports, right? Because as far as I know, you can only use one per skill. So they're going to be all new and unique, right? But effectively let you get like a level 6 support gem thing, which is just an awakened whatever, right? And it could have like some sort of crazy thing, like you cannot take reflected elemental damage from like awakened elemental damage with attacks, right? Something like that, just because it's fucking cool, and it would just be a dope power upgrade without really doing anything to the game, right? Like
Well, also, first of all, hello. I think we didn't have like an introduction during the recording, basically. So, as Jonathan said at the start, we're going to do like some impromptu podcast, basically. So, first of all, happy to be here. This is just me from the hotel room right now, so it's a bit scuffed up. But anyway, I also had a question about those support gems. So I remember originally you basically made this point about, okay, we restrict the use of support gems because like less is more, kind of like there is actually more combos and more things you can do, and now you're kind of like going back on that. And can you like maybe give a little bit more insight about your philosophy change there? So it was explained, okay, you can now invest into more skills, but I felt like it might also just lead to like everyone's just using the same gems everywhere. Is that like a fear you have, or how do you maybe perceive that now?
So that was exactly the fear that I have. The thing is that I guess two things changed. One of them is that I started to realize that the problem of people having feeling like they have to all in on one skill was actually a larger problem than what we were solving by having that restriction. And like especially when I was looking at things of like, okay, why wouldn't you use?
I don't want to, like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't much enjoy Woody Joe's content. I don't want to hate on him though, but holy crap, is he not good at this? He'd do the same thing I would, kinda, like just fucking talk, yap, and then he asks a question, and the question is done, and then he spends another fucking 20 seconds explaining the question, elaborating on the question without adding anything. It's just like adding like fucking. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I know he's a content creator, so he's used to being the center of attention, right? And I'm not necessarily saying that it's ego, whatever, but like he's used to trying to entertain people and he's the one talking. But when Jonathan is there, this is an interview with Jonathan. Nobody fucking cares what you have to say. You're just a mouthpiece for questions. You just need to ask a question and then get out. And if you have some insight or something that you want to elaborate on after Jonathan has asked the question, or maybe like, then sure, fire away. But holy crap. And I know I'm being harsh, and it is probably a little bit because I just don't. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of people that does it. Like maybe I just got annoyed because something went wrong in the kitchen. I was like, what did you? Now it's your fault. That could be a thing, but holy shit, that was bad. That was yap.
Have to all in on one skill was actually a larger problem than what we were solving by having that restriction. And like, especially when I was looking at things of like, okay, why wouldn't you use I don't know, like I can't remember what even the example I was using, but like there are lots of utility skills where it's like, why wouldn't you use this? And the answer often was, well, I mean, you would use this if you could support it with this and this and this, but you're not going to support it with this because you'd rather put it on this other skill. So utility skills were effectively always getting, gimped because they just didn't, you couldn't use martial tempo, you couldn't use like, various things to sort of get them to end game tier. And so then we're like, okay, like what is going to make it so that I actually use this? And like a lot of the conversations we're having, because one of the big problems we had is like skill diversity, and like, or I should say build diversity, trying to have it so that more builds are viable. And the question for every skill was like, well, why aren't you using this? Why aren't you using this? Right. And then like that became the answer for so many different skills that we're like, we have to do something about this. We just have to sort of improve it in some way. And then when I really looked at it, I'm like, okay, yep, we might get a problem where you're using some of these other things. But there is enough sort of differences in how skills work and like what's optimal for them that I think it will actually end up being okay. And then the lineage supports were also partly a response to this as well. So like, okay, what if we still have some really kind of interesting and different things that can like really push build diversity even further while making things more unique? And that's where the lineage stuff comes in. So the lineage supports do still have, by the way, because they're like, like supposed to be like uniques, they actually still have the restriction of 1 per character. But because they're kind of more special, they do like different stuff. They're kind of maintaining, they're carrying the flag for that, like, skills doing different things without like removing the sort of base, like, okay, you need to actually get a skill to a base level of goodness to be able to make it viable in endgame, which was a problem that we were running into quite a lot. And of course, now that we've got the multiple levels as well, you can push things further in some ways as well. So yeah, a lot of those things in terms of even the other ones that we're adding, right? Like a lot of utility skills are just going to come a lot better here. And so that was the primary goal of what we were doing.
Okay, can I follow up right now on this? So is it like more important for you guys that people use more of the active skills, and then it's okay that like you see like the same support gems used all the time, like martial tempo is an example. I see that being used like probably in like almost any warrior build, for example, just to like smooth out the animations, for example.
So I think it is okay, so long as it's not the case where every skill is like the exact same 5. Like if you've got 5 supports, but like at least 2 of
Is that not literally what you just said? Is it more important that people use more active skills versus more support gems? He literally just said the support gems were fucking limiting people to only using 1 spell, and we want them to use more, so we opened up the fucking support gems. It's like asking, wait, is 3 plus 1 4? Yeah, but what about 1 plus 3 then? Is that also 4? Bro.
them are doing something different on each skill, then I'm kind of okay with it, because like each skill still has its own flavor, even if you've got a couple of things that are duplicated. Now obviously we'll see how this goes, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay. Like there was a lot of fear around this, right? Like in the studio as well. Like when I first even pitched this, people were like, I don't know, isn't going to result in this? But I kind of eventually got across the idea that, you know what, like we're solving a bigger problem than what we're causing here. So I think it is important.
Okay. And I have another follow-up on that, if you're
okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Which is about it's a bit of a different topic, but it ties into this, which is the weapon swapping and using especially 2 different weapon types for dealing damage. So this is something we have not really seen so far, and it seems like we're trying to push that a little bit with, for example, the weapon swap speed. In fact,
Yep.
I have
Yep.
a unique design from the puzzle box that I wanted to really make something going towards in that direction, but I guess
Right.
now I have to come up with
Now
a
we're
new
just
idea.
doing it. Yeah. So that one was another one. So it really
Cool.
also comes down again to trying to promote build diversity. So that one actually came out of the sorceress design that we were doing, because we were saying like, okay, what are all the barriers that are preventing people from wanting to use multi-element builds, right? And so like we were looking at every different single thing through the game that we could find, and like that was just another one on the list where we're like, okay, like this is one of the barriers we have to break down. Let's just do it. And like it's quite a it can be a bit to get your head around doing the weapon swap stuff. So like you have to kind of encourage people quite a lot to even do it in the first place. So just removing every barrier we can to that is just going to improve things. So
Yeah,
once
I
again,
think
we
that's
decided
great. But the thing
focus on-
I would really like to see that I think is not really just there yet is actually using two completely different weapons, like a mace and a crossbow or something like that. I
Right.
feel like we have not really seen much of that. Okay, I can see like, the dual element stuff, like, a lightning and a fire setup or something like that. That is also something you showed, I think. And,
Well, I'll tell you one
something
important
going in that direction, or like
I'll
bow
tell you
and
one
crossbow. It's
important
kind of
step in that
close.
direction. I'll tell you one important step in that direction is that we've lowered attribute requirements by 25%. And so that will actually mean that it's much more viable to use like off-class stuff, which is actually another quite a big change as well. So that one, of course, has the obvious effect people would see of like I can allocate more power on the passive tree. Obviously, that's the main one. But yeah, there was a goal there also of just like increasing the ability to do off-class stuff. So yeah, that's been another one I think that's quite subtle, but will contribute to that.
Okay, so just to be sure, the attribute requirement reduction is not just for the gems, but also for weapons.
Also for
and
for
everything.
weapons and armor, yeah. So it's just everything is 25%.
Okay, yeah, because I think we only saw gems there, so I wasn't really sure.
Yeah,
So
but
I guess that will
I
be
should
something
have shown an example of both, but yeah, it is everything.
Okay.
Nice. Any
Try,
more
do you wanna
follow-ups,
maybe
Odie?
continue?
Good. I had
It's fine.
Dude.
Just go ahead.
Good. I had one quick question.
First, let me just follow up with the same question. Then let me follow up with a completely fucking different topic that is... Oh, it ties into it. No, it doesn't. It doesn't fucking tie into it at all. And then he doesn't let Jonathan fucking answer. The question is asked, and Jonathan is starting to answer, and he just keeps... I think I've just decided now that I'm annoyed whenever Wujito speaks, and it's just gonna get me to go like... Bro... I'm looking forward to the weapon swapping though. That shit's gonna be cool. I really want to force myself to do it. I wanted to do it both season 1. I did it a little bit in season 1. I had an execute wand for just gaining power charges, which was really nice. I think I did this maybe... No, I didn't do it in season 2. I did it in season 1 with the monk because we went when you gain frenzy charges, it's power charge instead. But for a while I used a wand, just execute and get power charges, which was really good. I didn't do anything with it in season 2, but I wanted to have a setup where I had a twister weapon and a lightning weapon, but I never got around to it because I was playing SSF and getting 2 good weapons was too much. And you couldn't like lock the one weapon into both. I think I couldn't get... They said they were going to do that, but I couldn't get it to work. But this time around I really want to do something with it. Right now it's going to be simply just... I'm looking right now at just doing the bell. So it's just going to be a quarterstaff simply to put the bell down. But hopefully I'll get better ideas once we're playing. It's going to be good. I'm really looking forward to Friday.
The gem limit. Does the Gemling Legionnaire get to use 2 lineage support gems?
I'm pretty sure that was what we did, but I think there was, you know what, we had a conversation about this and I can't remember where we landed. It was probably that. At one point I was proposing a slightly more insane change, which is that you could use 2 of the same gem and 1 skill gem, but I think that one was rejected pretty handily because it was way too powerful. I think it is that one, but I think we added more to those nodes as well. There were quite a lot of changes to Gemling Legionnaire nodes that I don't quite remember, and they didn't get covered in the presentation in the end. there's actually like a huge amount of balance around ascendancy classes that you'll have to wait for the patch notes to see, because there's like a lot of it kind of wasn't worth mentioning in the context of all the other changes that we're making. But yeah, there's a huge amount of balance. Like there's whole systems there that honestly it's kind of crazy. But like in a normal video we would have covered. Like we're changing the entire ignite system, stuff like that. There's just like stuff like that's going on. Like there's a lot there that like because of the amount of kind of cool stuff we wanted to show, we didn't have a chance to even talk about. But yeah, it's like definitely the biggest rebalance that we've probably ever done in Path of Exile history in terms of like changing so many things.
You took all those balance comments personally. That's what I thought. I just thought every single thing that, I mean, I've seen brought up in a lot of critique videos and the community has brought up was addressed. Now I'm curious. This is like a philosophy question.
Not the towers.
Looks like almost everything was buffed in that video. I'm just curious, how does the game feel right now? Do you feel substantially stronger? Is stuff melting faster? Are you moving faster through the game? Like, what's the overall feel at the company?
I really liked the Gemling Legionnaire being able to use 2 support gems from Bro said like more often than a 15-year-old girl. Jonathan does say like a lot, and once you start paying attention to it, it's hard not to. It's one of those things that it can make some of the interviews a little bit hard to watch, because he gets very excited by a lot of things. Like whenever he gets, well, also, is it only when he gets excited, or is it when it gets? It might be when I'm not entirely sure. Is when he gets excited or when he gets? No, it's not when he gets excited, right? Or like pressure or anything. It's when he knows more than he's allowed to say, and the answer is simpler than what he wants to say. Those 2 things, right? When he have a bunch of things in his brain, but he's sorting what to put out, then he goes just like, and it does bother me a little bit, but he seems like such a nice guy that I just don't want to harp on it. But the thing I wanted to say is the Gemling Legionnaire. I think it would be so cool if it was allowed to use 2 of the same category of supports, because now they said that there's categories of support and you can only use one support of each category in each skill, right? So you can't, if they have like 3 ways of adding multiple projectiles, you can only use 1. I think it would be amazing if one of the perks for the Gemling Legionnaire was that you could use 2. The using multiple what are they called, lineage supports is cool, but obviously it depends on what they are, and it could be, it can go both ways, right? Like, well, Mark did say that there were some that would just be straight up power, so if nothing else it will be power. But if they are really build enabling and really specific, it could either be amazing and you can create something that can only be done with 2 lineage supports, which is probably going to be the case for some things, but it could also just be the case that there's just nothing that really fits because it's a unique, right? And you have a unique and it's like, it's not really anything that fits it. But then again, there was some that were just power, so it could be good. It would also be cool. I would like if you could do some silly shit. It's mostly projectiles where stacking multiple, I can see it being dumb, but I would like to see that. I like dumb projectiles, it's fun. But Mark did say something about crashing the servers, so I guess. Yeah.
While you guys are playtesting this.
What I would say about that is that what we're trying to do here is buff the stuff that people aren't using. Like, like 0-0, there was a huge amount of nerfs, like to all the stuff that was too powerful. Whereas here, it's kind of the opposite of that, where it's like a bunch of buffs to the stuff that's bad. There are other types of buffs that affect everyone as well. Like you've got things like defenses and so on. And like, it does make the game easier for sure for that reason. But the thing is, a lot of people were...
I feel like he's whiffing on this question a little bit. The question wasn't about... like balance or anything in that regard, where it's like, oh, is the powerful things too powerful, is the weak things too weak? So bringing up the weak things isn't really what the question was about. The question was about, it seems like we're just flat out getting more powerful. So everything, the weak things are getting more powerful, the strong things are getting more powerful. Like the baseline is rising, right? Like, and how does it feel? But maybe he'll circle back to it.
Finding the game too hard anyway. I wouldn't say we've gone overboard in terms of making it like way easier. I think like it's probably in about the right place as far as that's concerned.
Okay.
But you know, like yeah, it is definitely a much more sort of buff heavy story in 0-3. Now, I'm not going to say there aren't any nerfs at all.
So it
like,
is
I know
easier.
Lightning Spear is getting a nerf. Like, I don't think anyone will be surprised to hear that. You know, like, yeah, obviously, you know, we just don't obviously dwell on those in the.
I'm not surprised to hear Lightning Spear being nerfed, but I am a little bit sad because and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Lightning Spear got completely out of hand at the end game. But I don't feel like Lightning Spear was OP because Lightning Spear was broken in comparison to what PoE 1 has. I think Lightning Spear was OP because it was broken in comparison to what PoE 2 has. And I would like PoE 2 to have more things like Lightning Spear from PoE 1. Like Lightning Spear cleared screens and screens behind screens. And that is what you do in PoE 1. And it is cool. And I wish there was more things in PoE 2 that cleared the screen after the screen. Like just... and then leave the rares and the uniques to not just be poof, just buff them up or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But that would make problems for bad builds, I guess. But I don't know.
In the live stream, but yeah, generally speaking, there's a lot more going up than coming down with this launch, and so I think that you know, people will probably enjoy that. But yeah, as I said, it's really about the stuff that's not being used, like making any kind of combinations that weren't working before now viable. And what that should mean, I hope, if we're doing our job right, is that like for a player who doesn't know what they're doing as much, if they just kind of pick semi-random things, then they're going to have a better time because of the sort of the buffing of the bad stuff that's going on. So I think that should be an overall improvement there. But you know, obviously there's still a lot of balance to do, and probably one of the scariest things is the shake up with the skill gems, right? Because like,
if you make it so that bad builds will still have a good time, then good builds are just gonna crush it, right? Because of just fundamentally how an ARPG works.
when you start screwing around with skill gems, like suddenly a whole bunch of builds you didn't expect can come out of the woodwork. So I'm sure we'll see some unexpected combinations there. But you know, yeah, it should be a lot better than what 0-2 was in terms of the balance.
Everything seems to be tossed up. The skill gems, the passive skill tree, crafting is another one too.
Right,
there
right.
appears to be like a middle tier now to crafting, while you guys also introduced a ton more risk and heights at the end too, with the new orbs and with the abyssal mods and everything. I think though, after watching that video, I think 90% of people are going to be playing unarmed, because that looked so much. I'm not even kidding. That looked awesome. That was the first thing I thought, and I think that's what has latched into my mind. Just all the possibilities and how it looked like you were like zipping around for monsters.
That's such a copium take. Yeah, it looked cool, but not everybody likes the idea of being unarmed, right? Like, do you really reckon that all the diehard minion boys are gonna go unarmed? No. Like, Gassie's gonna fucking play minions, and all of his followers is gonna play minions. It's like, what do you mean?
The monster. I'm really excited for that. I'll throw it to you, Woody.
Yes. I can only echo that sentiment. I think people are going to be very excited. I think crafting was one of the biggest issues that people have been bringing up all the time. And for example, bringing back the second version of the Recombinator is definitely something really welcome, because we actually get an item back. I can't remember how often. I don't even know if I ever got an item back from the Recombinator, basically. So there's that. But yeah, like, there's also like, I also have the concern a little bit, you know, not to really like, you know, try to balance out the fun or something like that in that sense. But it seems really like we are going up in power a lot, you know, not just through the gem changes, but, you know, we also have like a much higher ceiling now with the items that we can make. Are you actually planning to extend, for example, the pinnacle challenges? We have like the tier 4 bosses and so on. Is that currently the kind of like the ceiling of what we can expect, or are you like maybe raising the power a little bit of the bosses or something like that?
We actually didn't want to raise the power at the top end too much, and the reason is because you've got this issue with build variety that you can get, where effectively for someone to consider a build viable, it effectively has to be able to kill the hardest content in the game. So if the hardest content is too high of a bar to clear, it effectively means that very few builds can clear it. And so I think one of the problems that you have with build variety is that issue. So because of the way, like, I don't think that the top end power will change that much without as you get to like to the peak of the end game, because like a lot of this crafting stuff that's like really raising the bar, like you know, the sanctification, all that sort of stuff, like that stuff is pretty like hardcore. Like you're not just going to walk into like, you know, 120% mods and that kind of stuff, like, you know, very easily. So that's kind of really the, like, you know, the ultra end game, like super like crazy stuff that will get to the point of being able to just like destroy pinnacle bosses like that and that kind of stuff. So I don't know that, like,
but because of the crafting, your items are going to be better on average, because now you can guarantee higher mods, right? So yeah, you might argue that, yeah, you could just have mirrored before, but even the mirror items should on average be better, or at least more plentiful, and at that point they should be cheaper if they're more plentiful, right? So on average, your high-end build is going to be better just from gear, I would assume. And then you have the passive tree, which added more power. So that build is going to get stronger. Then you have your support gems that can now be leveled. So they're going to be more powerful. You're going to add in lineage skills. Or sorry, lineage supports, which again is just more power. You're adding in the opportunity to use multiple of the same support gem, which means you can probably use better combo skills and make them more powerful and more usable, which again adds to more power, right? So the top end is definitely going to be way more powerful, just because you nerfed Lightning Spear and whatever else, right? There's just going to be the next thing. And I think the next thing is absolutely going to be more powerful, because everything got buffed, right? Let's not forget either, you're going to have more sockets, right? You can find superior items now with an extra socket. So every single one of your items can now have +1 socket. Like, even if you corrupted everything before to +1 socket, you can now do that again. +1 socket. So all the gear on average is getting much better, I think. So if the game doesn't come up, then it's absolutely just going to be easier. And the most powerful builds are absolutely just going to be significantly more powerful. And I think one of the things PoE 1 does really well is that you can have these Omega Blaster builds that just crushes everything. But a lot of the, like, non-meta shit builds, kind of, they can still do the end game. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but saying that the top end doesn't come up that much, I think is I think is not correct.
And at the same time, like, the power increases aren't necessarily that much for the stuff that was already powerful. It's really all the stuff that was bad that's more powerful. So I'm hoping that more builds will clear the bar now. Like, that is really my hope. Because, like, one of the big issues is definitely, like, people just saying there aren't any builds, you know, nothing's viable. There's only, or you have to play Lightning Spear. Like, all that stuff is just, like, the issue. So I really want to just put all that to bed.
So Lightning Spear was so good, in my opinion, because it cleared the entire screen. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Now, if you have other skills that can do the same, but they were just lacking damage, and now you can, sure, you don't have to play Lightning Spear. But if we just go let's just say Lightning Spear wasn't nerfed, right? And obviously it is, but is Lightning Spear not absolutely going to be more powerful, significantly more powerful in the next patch than it was in the last? Obviously it is. You're going to have better items, you're going to have more sockets, you're going to have better supports, you're going to have more of the right supports, and you have the whole lineage system. Like, it is just going to be better. Now, unless something else comes in and with all the new shit completely breaks the scaling and beats Lightning Spear, if Lightning Spear was nerfed, it absolutely would be the best build next time around as well, and significantly better than in Season 2. But yeah, if you buff everything up, then you don't have to play Lightning Spear, because everything else, or not everything, but a lot of all other things can do the same.
Have that no longer be the problem anymore. Now, if we do get to the point of like people feel like they need an even like a bigger challenge, then we can look at that. But as I said, we have to be really careful, because if we raise the bar too much for what is at the top, then yeah, less things will be viable. We'll kind of ruin build diversity again. We've actually been through a few cycles of this in PoE1 where we've kind of raised and lowered and kind of like and screwed around with this stuff to sort of get to the perfect point. So it might take a little while, but I think right now it's more important to just get more things viable. Like that's really what we want. Like, you know, get back to the story of like, you know, there are lots of options, you can do lots of things. So that's kind of that's priority right now.
Yeah, just to like follow up on that real quick, it's also like, at least from my perspective and like from what I hear from many players, like especially on like the higher end of blasters or something, they also feel like they need something to do with such a powerful character, right? Like, why do I invest, you know, my 200 hours and try to sanctify all my gear and, you know, try to get the 100% roll on the, you know, percent fizz affix and stuff like that. So
I mean, that is definitely a concern. So like, I guess like but it is actually very hard for us to know, because here's the thing, like when we're testing the game, like in like a 4-month cycle, it would actually be impossible to really get many characters to the like peak of endgame. Like in reality, like sure you can cheat stuff, but it's never really quite the same. So there's quite a lot so realistically what I do when I'm testing changes is I'm kind of playing through the campaign, and then like might play a few maps, and then I'm kind of like onto my next character and doing stuff. So it's really hard for me to say exactly what the end game experience is going to be exactly like, but you know, in theory we've kind of tried to tune it, like, you know, in terms of like the few nerfs we are doing to kind of get those like few builds that were just like completely obliterating everything, you know, with zero challenge at all. We've tried to sort of take the edge off of those, while yeah, as I said, buffing all of the lower stuff. So I'm hoping that things are going to go well, but as I said, balance is like one of the hardest things to get right. And honestly, I think that we underestimated this part when it came to like predicting how long it would take to get out of early access, because you know, in order to get out of early access, we need two things, right? We need the campaign to be finished, and we need people to be happy with how the balance of the game is. And it's like,
oh shit, he said some things. Now I was about to say, one of the things I don't like about PoE 2 in comparison to PoE 1 is how restrictive the skill system is. Like, and I think it's gonna hurt the game in the long run, because you are so pigeonholed into playing the skills of your class or the ones right next to it, because it feels way more like PoE 2 is designed around a warrior uses maces, a monk uses quarterstaffs. Whereas in PoE 1, it's like, yeah, you can be a trickster. And the only thing that a trickster, like, it would more often than not, it would be like a damage type or a defensive type that certain ascendancies were really good at scaling. Like you have cold and chaos for the occultist, right? You got fire for the chieftain, that stuff, right? But you can do fire with a bow, right? Like you could play a fucking ranger chieftain, or like a ranger is also a ascendancy, right? But or no, it's a class. But in PoE 2, I feel like it's much harder, which also means when you then have something like Amazon, where everybody played Lightning Spear, and then you nerf the shit out of Lightning Spear. Well, what are you gonna play then? If you're playing spears, what are you gonna do then? All the other skills were crap, right? So now you kind of just butchered spears. Well, not all the other builds were crap, but right. But this was the good one. So now, why am I playing spears? Maybe I want to play maces now. Oh, but then it's going to be really hard to play Amazon. And it can be done, but it's much, much freer than it is. It feels much more free in PoE 1 than it does in PoE 2. And I'm not a fan. Like, at least do it so, say you have maces, right? Well, there's a lot of mace skills that realistically you should be able to do with a quarterstaff, right? There's a lot of mace skills that realistically you should be able to use with an axe, at least most of them, if not all, right? Like mace and axe, yeah, it's very similar. And you're gonna have some sword skills whenever it comes in. You can do that with an axe, right? Maybe not with a mace, because like swords are for cutting, right? But a lot of the things you can do with a two-handed sword, you can do with a one-handed sword. And most of the things you can do with a one-handed sword, you can do with a dagger, right? And a lot of them you'll be able to do with an axe as well. And some of them you can do with a spear. So I really feel like they should make it so that, yeah, you're not throwing a fucking sword, right? But if it's a lunging stab, you can do that with a sword. You can do that with some axes. Pole axes do have a little tippy tip, right? You can do that shit. It should be doable with some things. Now, obviously, if some of your axes is a pole axe and some of them is not, then there could be a limitation, right? Then it's better to just not do it. But the point remains, right? If you're doing like a swing, you might be able to do that with a spear as well, right? If it's like a lightning arrow, like what can you do with a crossbow and a bow? It should be fairly similar. And now I get that the crossbow has a bunch of the reload stuff tied into it, which is what makes it unique. But something like high velocity rounds or like precision shot with a bow, like why can't you do those? It's like it should be fairly easy to port over, right? And it doesn't make sense that you can't. Like I get it, the crossbow is kind of like a machine gun, which is ironic because in reality you'd be able to fire a bow much quicker than you can fire a crossbow. It takes time to reload a fucking crossbow. But there should be some overlap between skills. I refuse to agree that it has to be like, and I get it's an animation thing. I do get that. But it is limiting. And it is a little bit like, eh. I would have loved to see a lot more of the axe nodes, a lot more of the sword nodes like there is in PoE 1, rather than it's just like the PoE 2 passive tree, at least in season 1 and 2, feels a lot less exciting than PoE 1. But maybe the change is going to change that. Maybe they've addressed it enough.
That part is like taking longer than we expected and taking more of the effort than we expected. So it's like, I like for that reason, I don't think that we're going to be able to get out of early access this year. We might be we might have been able to get like the campaign done, but I don't know that we can. It's like maybe we'll luck out in 030. It's like
he said it. I've been saying it since they first said. Video game logic ignores the physics of crossbows. It's an unwritten rule of gaming. That is true. But it is kind of funny that the crossbows in PoE 2 is essentially machine guns. It's like you could machine gun with a bow, probably. Not with a crossbow. It's like boom, bam. Like, holy shit. You need a fucking device to reload a crossbow, right? Like most of them. Or you need to like screw something on it. Like there's like a little lever thing. I said when they released PoE 2 and they were like, yeah, we don't want to be in early access for more than a year. I'm like, no fucking shot is it gonna full release in December. And it seems like I'm right.
every problem will be fixed and things will be perfect and then it will be fine. But I kind of have a feeling it's going to take at least one more iteration after this to get everything kind of to the right point. And yeah, we can't go out of early access until then. So yeah, there's quite a lot there that needs to happen effectively.
Yeah, towers.
And, yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. But like what I'm hoping as well is that okay, like even and then this is the thing that you've observed, right? We have now answers to
True,
everything.
Demon Hunter was like
They
that.
may not be the right answers, but at least we've got answers, right? Which means that we can then like people can see at least everything that people were unhappy about. We're trying to solve, which I think is very important for people to feel. Like they were actually like looking at all that stuff and improving it. So yeah, as I said, might be more iterations, but we're very much focusing on directly on the things that people are unhappy about right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Tried, if you want to like jump in, but I had a question on the release as well, actually, so I can follow up on that as well.
Yeah, go for
Did
it.
he call him Dinosaur
Basically,
Try?
you just kind of mentioned or confirmed that we're not going to get the full launch this year, which is something that you had as a
I think
goal.
it's very
like,
unlikely
early
that we
on.
would. Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
very unlikely. We would.
Okay. I'm not going to take it as confirmation just yet. Okay, but
Yeah.
anyway, I guess that comes not really as a surprise, right? So we've seen where you just need more time for cooking, basically, and I
Right,
guess most people just understand this is how it is.
Mhm.
And like, do you have like kind of like, I don't know, like, do you feel like a pressure now to kind of get it out as early as possible because of what?
The whole like getting it out of early access literally doesn't matter to anyone super interested in playing the game. I know I'm being divisive when I say this, but if you care about PoE 2 enough that you will be unhappy about changes, you have bought an early access key. Like, it might be like privileged to say this, right? But if you really care about the game, you've bought an early access key. Like, getting it out of early access doesn't mean fucking jack shit. The game is out. We can play it. They're making changes. If anything, I would like them to stay in early access for longer because they feel like they can make larger sweeping changes during early access than they can to a live game. Because when it's live, people expect it to be a certain thing. When it's early access, you can always come around and say, look, it's early access. We're shaping the game, right? And I think large sweeping changes is what's needed to get it into a good state, rather than like small little iterations. Like, you can polish. I'm not saying PoE 2 is a turd, but you can only polish a turd so much, but it's always ever going to be a turd, right? So if there's things that need changing, like the map system right now, if it was released, right, then them overhauling it completely is going to be harder than if it's in early access, because in early access is like, yeah, it didn't work, we'll do something else, right? And I think that needs, well, for me to be happy, it doesn't need too much, but I don't think I'm a majority here. I think most of the PoE, what's it called, core player base is not happy with the PoE 2 map Atlas thing.
You said earlier, for example, or do I just like, okay, now take as long as it takes, and we're gonna release the game?
I felt a pressure from the very beginning, right? Like, I don't want this to go on for years and years. Like, I want it to, I want to get it to be, to have a free-to-play game again, like get back into the normal cycle of making leagues and everything. Because like the development process during early access is pretty, like, it's hard, right? Like, on the company and everything, right? Like, trying to make acts at the same time as doing other changes, like it's a pretty big deal, supporting PoE 1 and PoE 2, it's difficult. So I want to get that sorted so we can kind of get back into the rhythm again, and and sort of get everything going. So I feel that pressure anyway, but obviously we're not going to leave early access if people are unhappy with how the game is. So we just have to we have to sort that out. Yeah, like, that's what we'll do. We will take as long as it has to take, but I am really hoping it won't be that much further to get there.
You're waiting to add the druid, and once you have the druid, then you'll be out for early access.
Well, I mean, obviously the druid's important, but so okay, we really thought we were going to have that this launch, like, and it would have been, it's like if we'd have had that as well, it would have been so ridiculous in terms of the amount of stuff going on. But what happened was that the stuff for the existing characters, like we got to a point where we realized, like, if we're going to do all this stuff existing character balance, we aren't going to have enough time to finish the druid, and we realized that was actually more important, because adding a new class when you haven't fixed, or answered at least so many of the problems that you had before, is exactly what led to the problems that we had in 020. Like we added it, like we spent a bunch of time adding a class, we didn't spend enough time fixing existing stuff, And that meant effectively that, we ran into the problems that we ran into. So we certainly didn't want to run into that again. And so even though we were trying to do both, we felt it was more important to get the existing stuff in a better state.
There are a lot of new toys to play with. So yeah,
and there is a lot of new stuff there to do as well. So,
yeah, the notables, the new
Is
supports,
it low?
all that stuff. Yeah, it looks pretty exciting. I'm curious to go back on Rudy's question, expanding
I
on
don't
the
think so.
release. What is your bar? You want the players to be happy. What are you primarily observing there? Are you looking at the diversity of what people are playing? Are you just looking at general sentiment on like
He's gonna say everything.
or Reddit? What
I
are you guys
mean,
trying to measure there?
It's a little bit hard to quantify that exactly. Like, I mean, sure, Steam reviews are a thing, but I wouldn't exactly want to base everything on that because, there's various issues with that. Although I did notice today that they changed it so that Steam reviews now are language specific, so that a bunch of people review bombing you in like, I shouldn't name a country in a specific country aren't going to cause like overall issues and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, it really is just looking at the overall community sentiment. Like I would want certainly like people to generally feel like we know what we're doing, that we're, like the game is in a good place, that, skill diversity is good, that there's a lot of builds to play, that sort of, overall it's a fun experience. That, and I suppose another one that's really important is that it's fun to play through the game again. Because that's obviously part of it. If you're going to run a live service game that's seasonal like ours is, it has to be the case that people are excited to play through the game again each time. So if we haven't proven that we can do that with PoE 2, then obviously we're going to have a problem once we go into free to play. So that's.
I wonder if they're going to be able to maintain it being fun to replay the game. If we think about how much they're adding, we're missing Druid. We're missing Templar. Whatever that is, probably it's going to be Templar, right? We're missing Duelist. We're missing Marauder. Wait, so Druid, Templar, Marauder, Duelist. We have both of the Sorcerer ones. We're missing the Shadow. Is that it? So we're missing 5 classes. So that's 15 ascendancies. And it's 5 weapons, right? So it's 5 skill groups we're missing. And then we're probably missing somewhere in the 20th of ascendancies. Now, are they going to be able, with skills being tied to a weapon and it being very soft tied to an ascendancy or at least class, right? Simply because how the Atlas works. I mean, travel nodes are travel nodes, right? If you want a lot of them, you can go whatever you want, but probably not too great to play a quarterstaff build on a warrior, although it can be done, I'm guessing. But you're gonna have to travel to the monk side, and you can't go through the middle as far as I recall. Can you? I don't think you can, right? Maybe you can, maybe I'm dumb. So it's like, yeah, you really want to travel halfway through the map? I mean, I guess maybe you can make it worth it. I wonder if it's gonna like really allow the same amount of customization and replayability is what I wanted to say. I also haven't found too much damage conversion. I don't know if it's possible to convert from Ellie to Ellie freely. I know there are some nodes on the talent tree, but a lot of them is gain extra, at least when I was looking. Maybe there is some conversion. So that also limits your possibilities, but that could be added, I guess. Obviously, it could be. Like, realistically speaking, if you're gonna play a spear build, you're gonna play an Amazon or maybe a Ranger, right? I guess there could be an argument for Spear Monk, because you can do Lightning Spear and the Monk has a bunch of lightning stuff, or elemental, at least cold and lightning, in one of its ascendancies. And I guess if you want to do like poison, there's a reason to do chaos. So Chayula, bow poison kind of thing. But in PoE 1, it's like you can play a Juggernaut spellcaster. Or you can play a Juggernaut range boy if you want. Like, there's... It just seems far more limited what you can do in PoE 2. But there is also more classes. But I think there's less skills. And at a certain point, because they are making the skills that there are a few like main skills, and then there's a bunch of combo builders. It's kind of like you only really have 3-4 skills, really, maybe 5 or 6 in a weapon set, because you have ultimates, right? And you could build around them in Season 1, but I think they changed that, so you can't really anymore. So now you have to do something else, and you won't really be able to just ultimate your way through, but maybe that'll change. So they're kind of at least half excluded from the pool. You got things that are just clearly combo builders, like Whirling Slash, for instance, right? There's some toxic growth and something, where you apply poisons to them and then they duplicate it onto the target they're linked to as well. Like, that thing is just not gonna work on its own, right? Like, you need something applying the poisons, so your main skill is not gonna be that one. And there's a bunch of them throughout every single skill set, which ultimately just means you might be looking at 20 skills, but it's only like 5 or 6 of them that can really be your main. And the combos are kind of set already. So it's not like, oh, I can play Tornado with this combo, but next time I'll play Tornado with this completely different combo. No, because Whirling Slash is the only thing that makes fucking 18 tornadoes come out of your ass, right? Like, how are you going to scale Tornado without that? If you can get fucking plus 10 projectiles or whatever, I don't remember how much it's a lot. If you can get 10x damage or whatever from just having that, what's going to compete with that? Nothing's going to compete with that is the answer. So it's like, you might have, well, how many is it? How many classes? Is it 6 classes? Times 2, so 12 classes. Is that what we're looking at? So you have 12 weapon sets, but you don't, because Witch and Sorcerer share the same, right? Or do they? So you have maybe like 11 weapon classes. Or does Witch and Sorcerer have their own? Yeah, they do, right? Because there's occult gems. So you have 12. So you have 12 weapon classes. And realistically, you have what? 30 builds then. 36 builds, maybe. Something like that? No, that's too little, right? But you have... If I say you have 5 or 6, then it's 60 or 72. The question is how many of them are going to feel very samey. Because if it's combo building, right? Even if you change the main skill, if you say you have 5 skills and the main skill is different, but 3 of the 4 combo skills are the same, it's going to feel very samey, isn't it? I wonder if they can really make it so that it's replayable. If they're able to make enough balance changes. Now, obviously, they could just add more skill gems and then problem solved, I guess. Yo, Ragoth, welcome. But I think that's going to be... I think that might be a problem.
It's kind of really important.
You say it's like 50 builds? Yeah, something like that, right? And in PoE 1, each skill gem has different builds, right? Like, there's not one way to do Smite, right? There's not one way to do Cyclone. You can do base Cyclone, you can do cast on crit, you can do cast while channeling, you can do impale, or you can do. There's another one. I don't remember what it was. But there's several different ways of doing like one thing, and I just don't know really. There will be for PoE 2 as well. Like there was the Mjolnir stuff, but it just kind of feels a little bit more limited. But it might just be that I'm stupid and I can't see the opportunities. They are adding a bunch of uniques though. They are adding a bunch of uniques that have separate skills. So maybe that adds a lot of maybe that adds a ton of replayability. I'm just wondering if it's gonna get stale after like, I don't know, 3 years, right? In a way that PoE 1 is not gonna do. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
You know, we do get to get there too. But I wouldn't exactly say there's like, oh, here's some, Steam review percent metric that once we hit that we're good or anything like that. Like it's not like that. It's just, it really is ultimately the vibe of like, are people trusting us? Are they happy with what's going on? Then we'll know that it's fine.
One follow-up, Woody, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could just be that I'm not good enough at the game yet. Or I'm not good enough at PoE, so I just feel like there's endless opportunities. This might be a WoW thing. It might be coming from WoW, right? Because whenever WoW makes a change that switches up your rotation, if all it really does is replace one button press with another button press, it feels very samey. Like if we take Enhancement Shaman, it plays moderately different in Shadowland. It played moderately different in Shadowlands, whether you were playing Stormstrike or you're playing Lava Lash. But ultimately, one goes that way and the other one goes that way. And that's the difference. And it's just one is red damage and the other one is blue damage. And then, yeah, there's a little bit in between. But the real changes come when you then, oh, now I'm not picking this. Now I'm getting Ascendancy rather than before. Now my damage window is set and on a cooldown rather than a proc, right? It comes by more than just like swapping Lightning Spear for Freezing Gale Spear, whatever it is, leaves a cold trail. Big Pierce, just Railgun Spear. If everything I'm doing, let's say if we take the Tornado, right? But the Tornado is kind of unique, but it toxics then, right? Like if poisons, there's like, as far as I remember, there's pustules that blow up, and there's flowers that duplicate your poisons onto, so you can double your poison damage effectively. If you're playing those two in every poison build, then every poison build starts to feel like the same build. It doesn't matter if you're doing it with a bow or a spear or a mace or a sword. If it's always pustule, flower, bam, then it's the same. It's just slightly different flavor, right? And I fear that they're going to run into that for a lot of the builds. So it's kind of going to be like there's only really 12 builds. But that's not going to happen because the spells on their own are different. So maybe each spell group has like 3 like different combo setups. That's what I fear, at least. That's what I'm hoping is not going to be the case, and that's kind of a problem I'm anticipating a little bit. But hopefully they can get around it. If they add enough unique stuff, then there's obviously new builds in that. That sucks a little bit for SSF because you can't build around a unique that you may or may not loot. I guess they can nerf and balance things, right? Adding more skills, it's one of those things as well. In PoE 1, it seems super easy to add in a new skill. Like, just, well, I mean, you got to figure out what it is, right? But once you figure out what it is, then adding it in is basically just create a projectile, slap it onto whatever projectile animation they had in the first place, or a slam, slap it onto whatever slam animation that was there in the first place, right? Those things, or an attack, whatever, right? Like, and then change the, like, make a new particle effect or whatever, and boom, there you go, you have a new spell, skill, whatever. In which of it is, there's a lot of skills. There's like 50 builds from sorry, I'm not entirely sure what you mean here, Ragoth. What I was about to say is that it seems like for PoE 2, not every single, but it seems like a lot more custom animation goes into the skills. So every time you add a new one, not only do you have to figure out what it is, not only do you have to balance it, not only do you have to like make sure that it's different from everything else, but you also have to make a whole new animation for it. But I mean, there'll be enough for at least 3 years, and probably more for most players. So I guess it's all good. I just fear that they're gonna run into replayability issues. Like, once I've played Spear Amazon, once I've played Spears, then is that really gonna change? I don't think so. Like, maybe. I mean, if they add new skills, sure, but it's a passive that changes the whole set. Yeah. I think it might just be that PoE 1 has the illusion of more options, right? Because fundamentally Smite is Smite, right? And no matter how you scale Smite, you play it moderately the same, right? Smite is Smite. So in that regard, PoE 2 probably has more. But I still think maybe they'll add more. Like, I still think the fact that you can only tops use 4 different spell schools together, and that is occultist, elemental, and 2 weapon swaps, right? That brings that's so limited. Right now, I agree with PoE 2. PoE 2 has amazing potential. Yeah, it's gonna be a better game than PoE 1. I just don't know if it's gonna have the same longevity unless they do something to the skill system. And obviously, right now it's not as good. PoE 1 is better right now, but it should be. It's like giga old with a bunch of expansions on it, right? Like, it would be weird if it wasn't. I'm really not a fan of the way they wanted to go down with the skill system. I think it would be cooler to just completely free up the skill system like it is in PoE 1 and just keep the required weapon usage and be like, yeah, if you can use it with a mace, you can likely use it with an axe, and then go in and be like, oh, let me see, does this function, does this not function, right? Because most mace skills should be usable with an axe. Most axe skills should be usable with a sword, but not mace skills to swords, right? So it's like a lot of quarterstaff skills you could be able to use with an axe and a mace, some with a sword, not all of them, but like opening it up a little bit so that I could combine combo builders from spears into like axes, right? There will be some of them that make sense, like whirling slash and tornado. Why can't you do that with an axe, a sword, and a mace. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why can't you do that with a quarterstaff? It would make sense with a quarterstaff because the monk has a whole wind thing. Why can't the wind do the whirling thing? It's like, there are so many skills in that game where it makes sense that they could be used with other weapons, and opening it up, yeah, it's kind of like opening up Pandora's box, but that's the cool shit. It's so cool. Like, that's what they should do, I think. It's like, why can't, like, the rake stomp that everybody's leveling with, why can't you do that? Dead-eye waiting room, let's go. Yo, welcome. The rake stomp, it's just like you dash forward and you swing your spear, right? You can do that with an axe. You can do that with a sword. There's no reason that is just a spear. If anything, it makes less sense with a spear than with a sword. That should be a sword skill, if anything. Or an axe skill, like one of the two. But both. I just think there's a lot of the spear skills that is just a projectile that you could put on crossbows and bows. They're removing the tank. I'm assuming Rovmion meant remove. Oh, from Rake? Okay. I think they should remove a bunch. Like, I don't necessarily think that they should remove tanks as much as I think they should add more, right? Like, there's a, yeah, I mean, I've hammered on to this in perpetuity almost, like, so it's no longer a travel. Oh, really? That's not so cool, is it? Isn't that kind of shit? Like, who cares if there's like I mean, maybe I'm being dumb, but like, it's because I don't fucking care if I'm leveling efficiently. I'll do whatever is cool. There's no way you get me to just rake stomp throughout the entire game, every single league, because it's the fastest. Like, I didn't do it with Corpse Explosion either in PoE 1. There's no fucking way you get me to do that. So, therefore, I don't care. But, I mean, I can see it either way. But Rake absolutely should be a sword skill and an axe skill. It's so silly to me. It's so silly. I understand that a lot of the twirling that you do with a quarterstaff, you can't do that with a mace or an axe, because the mace is super heavy in one end, so you can't just do the twirling. It needs to be balanced. And the same with the axe, it's super heavy in one end, but you can do that with a spear. You can absolutely twirl around with a spear because it's not top heavy. So that you should be able to do the Tempest Flurry and the Frost Flurry or whatever, Cold Flurry. You should be able to do them with a spear, I think. And then all of a sudden you can add combos to everything, right? Like, maybe Whirling Slash doesn't just combo with Tornado now. You can make a combo with other shit. Like, imagine you could do like a combo where whenever you did a hit with Tempest Flurry, you'd do a Whirling Slash around you, and then you could consume it with like some sort of like monk skill. Like, the Tornado makes sense again, right? Like, using the Tornado to consume it again makes sense because a monk can do the wind shit. Maybe the wind whatever swing could then also leave Whirling Slashes, so you get another source of the Tornado on the ground, right? Like, if you open it up, you open up for more uses, and I do feel like you open up more design space as well. And I think they just need to be less afraid of things going out of whack. Which, it seems like they weren't as afraid, or aren't as afraid in PoE 1 of things just, yeah, I mean, we're going to throw it in. If it breaks, and then here we go. Whereas in PoE 2, it's like, we're capping things. You're only allowed to use one support gem. Oh, well, now you're allowed to use all the support gems you want on this, like, again and again. But you can only use one of each category on each skill. It's like, in PoE 1, it's kind of just like, here you go, blast. Like, is there anything you can't? What are things that are capped or you can't do in PoE 1? You can only have one like timeless duel, right? I mean, obviously you can't use like Headhunter and Maze Blood at the same time because they're both belts. You can only have 5 flasks. I mean, 6 link, I get, but you can kind of pseudo up to like 9 link or something dumb, right? Like, depending on what, maybe even higher. I don't know. 6 or like I know you can at least go 7, but it's meaningful combat. Yeah, but I mean, meaningful combat is all fine and dandy. I actually quite enjoy that. I think it's way cooler than just smashing one button. What I will say though is, when I'm clearing trash, I want to just smash one button. I don't want meaningful combat with a level 17 wolf. No, thank you. But if you're gonna throw a boss or even a rare in front of me, I'm down for meaningful combat. That's cool. All for it. But I just, if all of my combos have to come from the same skill, basically, and maybe I can add in 2 combos and then an elemental skill, right? So maybe I can have 3 skills, right? 1 being elemental, because elemental is spells and don't require weapons. And the other one being like the weapon swap that's now very, very doable. It gets a little bit stale pretty quickly, right? And most skills are not made to be comboed outside of their own tree or own like skill group, right? Like, one of the new things they're adding is that hammer, right? You throw the hammer down, if you then Warcry near it, it's gonna explode, right? And make like a fire pit nova or whatever, fire nova area. And if you then, I think if you then slam onto that, it's gonna keep pulsing, right? But the hammer is mace, the Warcries are mace, and the slams are mace. So I can't use that for anything else. And it sort of makes sense because slamming is very mace-like. But why can't you slam with an axe? Why can't you slam with a quarterstaff? The quarterstaff, a little bit less sense because it isn't top-heavy, so it's going to be less effective. So I'm okay with the quarterstaff being left out. But it's just the point of it, right? When you get the druid should be able to slam with a bear skill. Or you're then gonna have to like do a mace human form druid and then swap into the bear, right? Like, I guess throwing a hammer as a bear doesn't make sense. But the Warcry as the bear, you could just roar as a bear, right? That makes sense. You should be able to roar as a bear, right? It's stuff like that that I feel like they're kind of balancing out of the game because it's like, this is mace skills and you can only do them with maces. And I think it's hampering. And I don't like it. And I wish they'd change it. And he has specifically said that they won't. I think the restrict is that the support, if there's the same item, and then the lesser one, ineffective, PV1. The restrict is that yeah, you can only have one support. You can only have one support. I want to say type, but it's not type. You can only have a support once per skill in PoE 1, right? And that makes sense. And that restriction is in PoE 2 as well. You can't have multiple of the same support on the same skill. As far as I'm aware. Well, you definitely can't because it will share the categories. So you'll only be able to have one penetration tag support gem. Right? So whatever many penetration tags they add, you can only use one. You can only have one projectile tag. No. This is what they're adding. Like before, you could only use one support gem of that type on your entire character. Right? You can only use martial tempo once on all your skills. One time pick one skill and the others can't have it, right? Now they're going to be doing it so that you can have martial tempo in all of your skills. However, if you have, like, from PoE 1 example, you have greater volley and you have greater multiple projectiles, right? Both of those are increased projectiles. You can't use both of them in PoE 2. You can only use one per skill. So if you pop greater projectiles onto your skill, if you then pop in greater volley, only one of them is going to work. You can only use one of them because they are both increased projectile tag. That's what I'm understanding. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. I'm pretty sure they've explicitly said that. So if you have a penetration tag, you'll only be able to use one support gem with penetration to your skill. So however restrictive those tags are, we'll see, right? But let's take an example would be multi-strike and fast martial tempo, right? If we combine PoE 1 and 2, if they both have attack speed tag, you won't be able to use both of them in one skill. And you can use faster attacks with multi-strike in PoE 1, but you won't be able to do that in PoE 2, assuming they both have attack speed tag. Now, you can absolutely do martial tempo on every single skill you have, but you can't do on your main skill, you can't do martial tempo with another attack speed one, because they share the tag attack speed.
Through the game again, so you've added 3 temporary acts to the game. Was that that seems like a lot? What happened with Act 5? That's a lot of content. How do those feel playing through? Like, did they have seeded area, like seeded drops? Did you put a lot into this, or is it kind of like maps? Kind of like maps leading up to it with a small story, like almost like a mini league story.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. So effectively, the first thing was when we're going to add Act 4, we're like, well, how the hell are we actually going to do this? And we always knew this is going to be a problem, but it's like, okay, we add Act 4, we obviously can't make you play through all 4 acts again. That's like way too long. At the same time, we can't just have it in-game immediately after Act 4 either. You won't be the right level and it won't make sense. So then we're like, okay, what are we going to do? So there was like, obviously, do you make people play through like Act 1 and 2 after that? Or like, it's kind of weird. Like, it doesn't really work. Like, not, there kind of wasn't really a good answer. It's like, okay, what does it really take to get you to end-game? What's it going to take to get you from the level you are at the end of Act 4 to 65? And we're like, it's going to take about 20 areas. And we're like, well, what is 20 areas? Well, I mean, so Act 5, that would have been enough. But getting Act 4 and Act 5 in at the same time could have been an option. But the issue with that is that like it would have just been a lot to make. And there's just a thing with game development where it's like people don't really finish something until they know it's going to be released. So like if we were working at the same time, it would have honestly, I felt like taken longer to get both of them out than doing them than both individually. So then we're like, okay, so what can we do in the meantime? And so the answer was, let's make some like side stories where we're like, it's not going to be the same quality as like what a full act would actually be, but you can kind of look at them as like 3 kind of like quests. They're like, they've got some bosses, they've got areas, like, they're not storyline heavy. They do have like a story where there's like, some NPCs. It'll be like 1 or 2 NPCs who talk to you. It's not like a whole town with like a bunch of stuff going on. It's like, a relatively minimal thing. We'll make content that we intend to make anyway for endgame. Like we'll make areas and we'll make bosses and stuff that we're going to use anyway for endgame. And then like the only part of that that's really going to get thrown away is just like the NPC dialogue stuff and like little storyline things, which isn't too much. Like all the actual art, like all the stuff that takes a long time to make, all that stuff we'll get to keep. And then we'll put that in endgame as well, so you won't really you won't really miss out on it. But it is canon stories, right? These actual things that is canon storyline things. So like you'll experience that and you'll get to see that.
I think it's cool.
And it only has to hold up for like a few kind of for a league or 2 until we get Act 5. So yeah, effectively like that's kind of what we're talking. So there is some reuse, like sometimes we've taken a boss and done a reskin, changed the abilities, that kind of stuff. We've got a little bit of that going on. Some of them are like many of them are completely new. In some cases we've taken maps from the end game and we've turned it into a campaign area and like things like that. So there's kind of like a little bit of chop and changing and so on. So it certainly was a much faster thing to make than what a real act is. But I think it's going to be fun to play through. It's going to sort of be an enjoyable experience. And yeah, as I said, something to certainly much better than having to replay through Act 1 and 2 again. So like that's what we're looking at it compared to.
Wait, I'll make sure to scribe down the story. All right, Woody, over to you, man.
I mean, I'm sure it'll be in the wiki forever. So,
it's, it's certainly a very interesting system with this kind of a temporary Act 5 and then 6, and I guess let's see how it goes. But it definitely, I think a lot of people will really feel much more excited about starting
He
again.
is
So I think that's a
not
good
keen
move
on that.
with,
Right.
just
You
doing
can
away
tell.
Well, I mean,
with all
the,
these-
yeah, the playthrough thing was certainly not helping with the whole, games. I mean, like when we started this season, like the 4 months ago, we literally just like, okay, we put a big whiteboard up in Mark's office and we're like, let's write down every problem people have on the whiteboard, and like not in terms of like here's what we're fixing, in terms of just like this is the problem, right? So like top of the list was
For the amount of times he said that, this is like a bullet point that they've decided that we're gonna really push, which is fine. It's cool. Obviously, they wanna, after season 2 was a little bit of a fiasco, right? Maybe a lot of a big fiasco. And there was a lot of negative sentiment around it, and Jonathan especially was really unhappy. I do think that it's a little bit that they're not mentioning more than once that they just didn't get to do towers. They didn't manage it. It was a bigger change or anything. But maybe he'll say it here.
game is a slog, right? Like that was literally just right there. Like, what are we doing to address this? What if that's the thing people are saying? What's going to improve that? Well, it's like, well, for start, let's not make you play through the whole damn thing twice. That's like a like a really important thing. But there's also sprint was written under that, and like a bunch of other sort of speed improvements and stuff like that. We're like, okay, what's going to solve this? So yeah, like that's the way we were looking at how we were approaching the entire design process for this season. So.
Mhm. Yeah, so I have another question, which we're still loosely on the topic of releasing and the dates and stuff like that. So at some point in the past, you mentioned that you consider releasing 1.0 without all the classes in the game, and it looks more and more likely that this is what's going to happen now, right?
Yeah.
Do you have like maybe some sort of like, I don't know, final date in mind where it's like, okay, this is the maximum time we want to
What
spend
the fuck
until
is
we
that
have all the
question? He
classes
can't
in the
say
game or
that.
something like that?
Of course
That's
he
something
can't.
that you already keep in the
I'm
back
honestly
of your
not
mind.
sure, because the answer to that depends on how much like balance of existing stuff needs to happen. Like if we come out of 030 and like the balance is in a pretty good place, we might be in a situation where we can concentrate entirely on classes and then we can get them done like relatively quickly. But then if we come out and it's like, okay, there's
It's
still
gonna
like,
drop like 3 at once, boom.
yeah, then it's like okay, now we have to do a lot of things. Like, and there was quite a lot of half-finished stuff. Like, okay, I mean, there were like ascendancies and all sorts of stuff that we were gonna have in this version. That a lot of work was done. Like a lot of stuff could happen pretty quickly if we don't have other balance problems to deal with. So yeah, it's just that it's one of those things where like new classes and existing classes, exactly the same resources need to be spent on them. So that's the challenge of balancing one to the other.
Speaking of ascendancies, is there like any kind of, let's say, learnings or like, I don't know, the change in philosophy, for example, how you develop the new ascendancies compared to what you had at launch, for example? For example, like making some of them more generalist versus specialized, or do you have like any sort of like change in
I
that
wouldn't say
philosophy
the
maybe?
philosophy has changed really. It's more just that we see that things aren't working, we're improving them. I mean, one of the things we try to do with the ascendancy classes and PoE2 in general is they've kind of got a lot more like skills and interesting mechanics like that going on. And even with the new ones we're designing, they're getting even more ridiculous as far as like coming up with stuff like that. Like some of the ascendancies have just such cool. Oh man,
Oh, come on, drop one.
I can't do it, but there's one of the new ones that's kind of impressive. So yeah, we just like to try and sort of up the bar on like the amount of stuff that goes into each one at this point. But yeah, at least for the existing ones, like we've made a lot of really good changes. Like we went through like a couple in that presentation, but there's like a ton more on like I'm not going to say every ascendancy class, but there's certainly changes like all over the ascendancy classes that
I'm looking forward to reading the
nodes.
patch
Like
notes.
a pretty common thing that we've been doing is like if there's 2 nodes where like they're both underpowered, or maybe even sometimes when the 4-point node is good but the 2-point node is bad, we'll just like merge the 4-point node down into the 2-point node so that you've got both, and then add something new afterwards. Like this kind of thing is like a way to add power and then also something new without actually losing any of the functionality you had before. So there's like that's sort of going on in quite a few places in the ascendancy classes now too. So yeah, like we'll just keep adding to them until we've got something where like every class is something people want to play, and like ultimately the goal there is just a relatively even flat amount of people playing each ascendancy class. So hopefully we can achieve that relatively soon.
I suppose that also comes just down to like, I don't know, tastes and popularity of certain archetypes and stuff.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that
you get that kind of thing
right?
as well. I mean, look, they don't have to be exactly even. They just have to be.
I would
at least,
hope
there's
that
still
you're not just
reasonable.
balancing for the numbers, right? And
right. Yeah.
But it does make sense the way you describe it. Do you have like maybe some sort of like, I don't know, the average power gain for an ascendancy or for an ascendancy point in mind? Is it like something that you balance around? Like this is the kind of expected value?
Yes,
Even though
there
it's
is a
like
number for
obviously
that. There is a number for that. I don't remember what that number is. Mark's and Andrew are the ones who normally do the balance versus that, but they have a very established system of like, you know, here's what each mechanic is supposed to be represent in terms of power. You know, like I don't know exactly what the number is for ascendancy classes points, but it might be something like 20% or something like that of character power from the when you ascend. I don't know if that's the actual number, but it's something along those lines, and they'll know that, and so that's what they're trying to balance towards. And like establishing those metrics is something that they've put quite a lot of time into. Is like,
That sounds super difficult, right? Like, yeah, sure. If you have 20% and a node gives you like just defenses, right? If that makes you 20% more tanky, basically, sure. If you have just damage, that makes you 20% more damage, sure. But what about the skills? Like, what is that gonna be? Because they can be 6-linked now. Is that skill gonna be 20%? I guess they're just buff skills then. But then it's like, okay, so then all of a sudden, if it's a buff skill, then what's the uptime? Because if it's not permanent, then it's like, okay, so you have it up for like 5 seconds and it's going to take you 20 seconds to win it back. So it's going to be like 100% damage increase in the 5 seconds. But then down to fucking, what's it called? But then after well, I guess it would be 15 seconds then, right? No, wait, 25, right? Yeah, so then after 25 seconds, now, well, you haven't had it for that time, so now it's 20% total. But 100% burst phase is usually just way better than, like, you looking at it overall, right? Because you don't need that kind of damage all the time. So burst is always better than sustained. There is not a single time where sustained is better, assuming that you can burst frequently enough. That sounds really difficult. And then what when they're like adding... What when they're like adding... Yeah, when they're adding spells, it's kind of hard, right? When they're doing hybrid damage and... But then also, if you look at the Trickster from PoE 1, it has one of those where it's like, it used to be 3% more damage per mastery taken, and it's now 2, I think. But like that is scaling, so that can't just be 20. Wild.
making sure. And so that was also something at the end of when we went into 0.1. I don't think we had as good of an idea about where all those things needed to be. Like we had obviously a bunch of experience with PoE 1 in this regard, but PoE 2 is a bit different. And I think one of the hardest ones actually there, just to kind of change the topic slightly, is that we've had a really hard time zeroing in on what should comboing give you as far as an increase to power versus not doing it. And the reason why this is so hard is because it needs to be high enough that people are incentivized to do it. And like that number has to be surprisingly high to even make it worthwhile. Because like generally speaking, like people aren't going to wake up for like a 20% increase in power. Like they're like, I'll just rather do one thing if I'm only getting a 20% boost. So you'll notice that one of the themes in the video was that, you know, and maybe we didn't dwell on it long enough, but like, you know, we're increasing the bonuses of all of those kind of comboing type things quite a lot in this patch. And that even comes to the core stuff like chill and shock and ignite. All of that stuff is changing quite a bit. Like, so ignite, for example, it's now, okay, I don't think we changed the base ignite, but we made it so that all the skills that are designed for ignite have bonuses to duration, so that they actually, like, you know, you're more likely to combo them with other things because the amount of time that the ignite lasts for is so much longer. And with shock, for example, the shocking skills that are intended to be used with shock, all of them now have magnitude increases. So you know, there'll often be plus 50% effective shock on anything that you're sort of intended to be used that way. And we've also made shock last twice as long. So it's like now you've actually got something where, like, you know, you actually would want to use that. And so there's kind of that theme going throughout. And effectively what I'd say is now is we're trying to zero in on a new standard for what a combo should give you. But at the same time, we have to be really careful, because if the effect of comboing is too high, then that means new players can get screwed, because if they're not doing that, they're just having a really tough time, right? Like it's like if the effective comboing versus not comboing was 300%, then someone who is not doing that is now taking 3 times longer to kill a boss, which might feel
What he's saying is 3 times longer to kill a boss. I think that's fine-ish. It's probably a little bit on the high end, right? But what I really want them to be careful of is making it so that I have to combo to kill a white mob, and so that I have to do a full combo to kill a blue mob as well, right? Like, I do not want to go through 3 whirling slashes to kill a fucking pack of white mobs. No, thank you. I did it once, not doing it again. Like, give me lightning spear for trash. Just let me clear the screen. And then the magics can stay standing and I have to hit them again. And the rares I need to combo on, and the bosses and uniques I definitely need to combo on, right? I am all in on that. But I am not in on comboing on white mobs.
like a slog. So yeah, like that's been a really hard one to nail down, and I think we were also a bit inconsistent through the game of like how much combos are worth for different things. Now I will say that we're sort of standardizing on a slightly higher value, but then also trying to add more combos in so that they're more obvious. And that what I'm hoping with that, what we'll get is like a lot better of a system where you get to feel that power. And so then when you look at like the Sork, for example, we've got all these infusions. Like all those infusions are giving pretty damn big power bonuses to all these effects. Like there's quite a big power boost there if you're using them. But you have to use them, right? Like if you're not going to use them, I think you will have a tougher time. So that's a risk, right? Like a risk that we are having to take. But I think it is important to make things more interesting.
And I also still.
But you fucking have to be able to clear white mobs without infusions. I'm just saying, it sucks omega ass. When I played the Amazon, I tried to do what they're telling me, right? I tried to parry, to get the charge, to then throw the explosive spear down, so that it went like big boom, and then suck it up with whirling slash, and then hammer out a tornado, right? Like, it's cool. But if I don't do it, then I chuck explosive spear down. It takes 45 seconds for it to explode. It doesn't, but it takes a while for it to explode. Anything will run out of it, right? If I just chuck a tornado off, it tickles them. Whirling slash on its own does fucking nothing. And if I don't do the frenzy charge with the spear, then I have no flaming ground. So I'm just... And pressing, like, waiting for it to hit me so I can parry, then hitting the backflip. Now I'm up to 2 things. Then I'm chucking the spear down. I'm up to 3 things. At 3 things, the pack should be dead. But it isn't. So now I do 3 whirling slashes. I'm up to 6 things. And the pack's still not dead because nothing does any fucking damage until I press Twister. It's like... Ugh. I don't want that.
Facilitating or like...
And they really need to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Envisioning at least these kind of like one button builds where people just blast and have a good time. Basically, I feel like I hear it very often, at least from people in the community, where it's like they sort of like press one button, the screen explodes, and okay, I can understand it. Maybe very end game when you're like fully decked out. This is something that you probably are fine with. But this is also something that you would like to have, like maybe as let's say an alternative option for specific builds or specific weapon types or something like that. Do you have something built in like that?
So this is a real troubling one, actually. Like, so my normal answer to this is absolutely that. Yeah, by the time you get to end game, that's fine, right? Like,
yeah, that's not good enough. You need to be able to do it in leveling. And that was one of the things Lightning Spear did so well, which is why I'm saying Lightning Spear on its own. I don't think Lightning Spear was broken because Lightning Spear was broken like it would be in PoE 1. I think Lightning Spear was broken because everything else is dog shit. Like, Lightning Spear was so good because you could build the combo. It comboed only with charges, really. I guess you could do other things with it, but it just needed charges. And you could set it up so that you got charges from hammering Lightning Spear off. And there you are. You're good. You just go. And so it just turned into a one-button clear machine. And if I need to press 2 buttons to clear a screen, that's fine. 3 buttons, you're starting to push me. 4, I'm not okay anymore. It's like, it's too much. I don't want to press 4 buttons before I clear the screen of trash. Blue mobs and white and yellow mobs, sure, I can fight them. Blue mobs, they maybe, if I need to press 4 buttons to kill a pack of blue mobs, I'm okay with it. I can go 5 as well. If I have to do a full-on freaking 8-button combo to kill a rare, okay, I'm okay with it. It's not what I ideally would like, but you're not gonna catch me complaining. But if I have to do it for white mobs, I'm not playing. And there needs to be lightning spears. You have to, if you want to do the whole like, oh, there's weapons thing, each weapon needs to have a lightning spear. In my opinion.
That's always been my answer. Now, for the campaign, it's a little bit trickier because the problem is that most people, it's like, why press 2 buttons when 1 button will do? You know, like if the balance is such that a 1-button build can work, and if that's trivial to do, and then it's just 1 button, like that can be a problem. Now, my personal feeling right now is that like during the campaign, you know, it should be that like, you know, using a bit of comboing is required, but then once again, as you get to end game, it is more fine to have that less, like to, you know, to have 1 button for clearing to be more of a thing. But I still want the combat to matter as you go through the game initially. Now,
I really wish that they just make it so. I just want them to beef up the scaling of magic and rare. I just want them to beef up their health. That's what I want. I just want them to omega beef it. And then you have single target and you have AoE. You don't have to have one skill do it all in PoE anymore, because you have as many 6 links as you have skill slots. There is no need. Like this, I feel like they're designing something based on lessons learned in PoE 1 when the system is fundamentally different. I do not need to combo on trash. It's going to ruin the game for me. I don't need to do it through the campaign. I don't need to do it in maps. I don't need it in endgame. I don't need it anywhere. But beef up the combo so that it's like a 500% multiplier, and then beef up boss health by 300, 400%. I'm okay with that. Like, it sounds dumb, but what that effectively does is you can't do a 1-button build for bossing, but you can still just absolutely crush through maps, which is what people want, right? Like, but then again, then nothing is really dangerous, I guess. But it's just, it does not work if you have to combo every time you want to clear a white mob. It doesn't fucking work.
This is going to be a little bit of a tough one though, because like, you know, it does depend. There is one extra X factor that I think is interesting to change this, which is that itemization. Like, there's a difference between knowing how to do itemization correctly as a player and not doing it. And I guess what the hope would be is that we can get to a point where, like, if you've played through the game a few times, you understand itemization, so you know what to do during the campaign. You can kind of get your items to a point where you don't necessarily have to do as much to kind of like, you know, from an action skill perspective to be able to get through the campaign. Whereas if you don't know how to do that stuff, then, you know, it's going to require a little bit more from the action side of things. And I think that can be fine as well if we can get to that point. It sort of does mean though that, you know, the item system, there's a level of like, you know, like there has to be some ability to express, what's the word? Like,
this actually sounds like a really good compromise. If you get good items, you can just 1-button your way through. And if you don't, you have the combo system to fall back on. That makes a lot of sense to me. The only problem with that is everything you do in terms of item acquisition is fucking RNG. So it doesn't matter how well I know that I need plus level to spells on my necklace. If it doesn't fucking roll, then I'm not gonna get it. I guess there might be a vendor recipe.
Well, skill basically in terms of how you pick your items. Now, I think there's already some of that, but like there's things like knowing where to get certain items from and things like that, that like you have to have enough hooks of that through the game to be able to make that work. And then the last thing I also just want to mention is another interesting factor that Sprint has added on, is that previously you kind of had to kill. I mean, sure, you could skip monsters, but like it really wasn't that effective to do so. Sprint now does give you the ability to skip combat if you want, because you are going to be faster than the monsters, and that means that if you do get good items and then you're effectively overpowered for the area, you can skip for a while and then not have to kill everything, and that's going to sort of be another factor here of like the degree to which you skip monsters and therefore get a bit under leveled, but make it up with item power. And then that's going to, of course, mean that you might need to combo stuff more in order to be able, if you're going to do that, you might need to then combo stuff more in order to accelerate yourself through the campaign faster. So that is a bit of a complicated way to maybe say nothing, but effectively I guess there's kind of a lot of points I'm making here about like the different elements of what goes into this, and I guess ultimately it's complicated, but I think the dynamic with sprint actually is going to change things quite a lot. The dynamic with some of the item changes we made is going to change things a lot, and then the dynamic with the amount of combo multipliers is going to change things a lot, and I guess we'll just have to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine we're going to see some pretty campaign speedruns very soon.
Yes, yes. Well, the speedrunning game is going to be very interesting. And so by the way, what I'm hoping will happen is that people don't have to use the like annoying kind of weird sort of slightly exploity movement combo-y things.
Yeah.
And because sprint will ultimately be faster, so should ideally not necessarily be about that. But so I feel a bit sad that I've killed a bunch of people's time they've spent learning how to do this exact specific little movement thing, but it's
Animation
life,
canceling.
Well, I guess the thing
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that sprint seems to be like a very dangerous tool to use, since you get stunned on the first hit you take, right?
You do,
So
however,
you specifically want it to be something for like out of combat movement, and I think there's actually a
It
very
is,
good
yes.
solution for that, where people like traverse maps that have already cleared.
Yeah.
So
It is, but what I will say is that unless you get really close to the monsters, generally speaking, they're either going to be melee, in which they can't hit you, or projectiles just have a really hard time hitting you when you're moving that fast. So generally speaking, you're pretty safe unless you're like right near the monsters. I think you'll be okay there. Now, obviously, you can get cases where it's like there's a doorway, there's a bunch of monsters there, you're not going to be able to sprint through it. Like you do actually have to kill things in that situation. But generally speaking, yeah, you can. You in an open map, you can sprint past them fairly easily.
When you
I'm
mentioned
excited
that,
to try that.
oh, go for it.
Go ahead.
Gonna say, when you mentioned that evasion was the worst defensive mechanic early in the video, I was a little scared that you weren't going to talk about armor at all. But it seems that you
No, we
guys did settle on a solution, it seems, to buff armor. Wanted to know how you guys settled on what you eventually did, and a follow-up to that modifier elemental take.
I've been hearing around the PoE stuff that the armor change is dog shit. That it's still gonna be shit.
Taken, elemental damage taken via armor. Is that on just body armor or all types of equipment?
So all types of armor, and it's also on the tree as well. So it's generally available. You'll be able to get it. I am not sure whether you'll be able to get it to 100% easily or not. That's kind of an Andrew question. He'll know that. But yeah, I mean, effectively the goal is we want you to, with specking to be able to effectively mitigate the downsides that each defense has. Like energy shield didn't really need particularly much here, so we didn't kind of do much for that. Although I think there might be a few changes. But the big ones are evasion and armor doing things. And so, I mean, I would say there's a meme that armor is the worst defense, like kind of going around in the community a lot, but I actually don't agree with that. Like when we look into that, it's like, yeah, sure, there are issues, but like we believe that the elemental stuff is going to improve that. Evasion actually, like when we looked at it, it's like, no, people really weren't doing full evasion. Like people were always doing some kind of hybrid. Like full evasion was kind of like just a death wish.
Yeah, but isn't full evasion always a death wish? Do you ever really go full evasion? Like in PvE1 you have spell suppression, right? Like do you ever go evasion without spell suppression? I don't think you do, right? Like I mean, I guess you can go glass cannon, but then you're not doing any defense, right? Like the only defense you're really doing is whatever happens to be on your armor.
So we needed some kind of way to address that concern. And but what we didn't want to have, and this is kind of important, is that in PoE1, it's like suppression is just a defense that everyone uses. It's kind of mandatory for everyone. So something that was important for us is that it still requires you to have evasion in order to work, so that you didn't have another class just coming in and stealing this mitigation that was intended for the evasion character.
I will say I do think it's cool that you can do a bunch of things with suppress. I think it's cool. Like that's one of the things that's really cool about PoE1. Now suppress is probably a little bit oppressive. It kind of suppresses everything. Spell suppression is overpowered, right? But it is cool that there are certain ways that you might be able to get spell suppression onto, say, an armor base, right? Like do the recombinator. I don't know if you can do the recombinator. You can, right? Or can you? I'm not sure. But there are like certain ways that you can like, or you have been in the past able to move suppression around, right? There are certain ways that you can cap suppression without big investments into evasion gear, like some necklaces, some anoints, and some like talent tree stuff. And I think that's really cool. It's just that there's only suppress that you can do it with, and suppress is so powerful. I think it would be cool, and I think you think it would be cool if deflect could be used by others as well. Just like I think it would be cool if the armor thing could be used by others as well. And I think there's a mercenary ascendancy node, right, where your armor works for deflect, right? 20% of your armor counts as deflect, or so, deflect chance or something.
So basing it on the amount of evasion you have, and like effectively not converting, but adding deflect based on your evasion, it means that we've got a situation where you get to have something, the deflect mechanic, but other classes can't effectively use it. So
right. And then going back to sprint just for a moment, are there cool ways, any interesting ways to scale it on the tree or with unique items that you guys are adding aside from just movement speed with boots?
No, I actually don't know. There was a plan for one thing for that, but I don't know whether it actually got in or not. So I can't say for certain whether it was. I know there was a unique, but there's actually, there was quite a lot of uniques that we nearly got across the line, but didn't quite. So it's kind of likely that we'll have like a 031 with a bunch of that stuff that kind of almost made it.
Right.
So we'll see about that. But so I said I don't know whether that one is in or not. But generally speaking, you don't really need to spec into it because it already makes you pretty fast. Like it's a 50% increase to movement speed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty fast.
Pretty quick. I was gonna say Havoc would love if you could. There was like a unique where you could phase while sprinting or something like that. That'd be pretty crazy. That'd be busted.
I'm thinking about whether that one's alright, but yeah.
Yeah.
That just sounds overpowered as fuck.
So.
It would.
Okay, I have a few more like smaller questions that I got from like my community and some friends and so on. That kind of just like some rapid fire, like you can just answer that real quick if you don't mind. One is Windows 10 support for how long? Do you have any plans on that? Because I think the Windows 10 support is ending like officially soon.
I don't have any plan to remove support. Honestly, I feel like Windows 11 is harder to support than Windows 10, given all the stupid, annoying scheduler bugs with it. Like, Jesus, that's been a horrible problem. So honestly, I'd rather you run the game on Windows 10 right now. Okay. But whatever, throw Microsoft under the bus a bit.
And like in general, maybe like game optimization and tone performance.
Right,
I hear from people that they sometimes have issues lagging out and stuff like that.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk about that stuff. So yes, obviously for Europe, servers is a big topic. We have been getting relentlessly DDoSed for a long time. What I would hope you would notice though is in the last few weeks, things are significantly better. And that's because we have been doing a massive program of trying to improve the stuff. So
that's really
now
cool.
we've actually dropped a lot of
the DDoSing thing is so cringe. Like, I don't like using the word cringe, but if you're DDoSing a game, you are fucking cringe. Go outside, find somebody whose genitals you'd like to touch and ask if you're allowed, right? Like, do something with your life.
Server hosts that previously were just not able to get to resist DDoS attacks enough. Like we're just saying, if you can't do it, we just need to get rid of you. We've added more DDoS protection in front of, like using Cloudflare in front of more stuff. We've been working with servers to do that. One of the things we've also been doing is we've been actually DDoSing ourselves to test that the mitigations are working, which is something we never did before. Actually making sure okay, so we're sure we got this protection in place, but will it actually work? Let's test it by doing this. We've been, it's been a huge program of doing that. So I feel like, here's the thing, right? Like if I say all the problems are fixed, then obviously there'll be some random issue and that will suck. So I can't really promise that everything's better, but what I can say is that every mitigation that we could possibly do is being done. And then for the free weekend, we should really stress test this and have a lot of improvements. And there is, like there might be a couple of cases where like a server host had to be gotten rid of, even though it's technically the lowest ping for you. Like you're going to have to fall back to an adjacent region or something like that, but because we just literally couldn't get good DDoS protection there. But I don't think people should generally notice that. We've generally been pretty good here. And yeah, as I said, the goal is, like we just need to fix this problem because we can't have another launch being ruined by this stuff. And then as for engine improvements, there's actually been a complete rewrite of the renderer front end in this version. It's not really a player facing thing because obviously, like that doesn't mean anything to most players. What I will say is this: the game is faster now. We've
Cool.
we've optimized the general like steady state performance. So what that means is like frame rates are a little bit higher, but more importantly, there's also a bunch of stuttering that's been improved. I'm not going to say completely fixed, but definitely like a lot better.
Cool.
And load times are better as well, which is another good one. You can actually, generally speaking, at least on my machine, like loads between areas are now under 5 seconds. Not the first one. The first one will be a little longer due to having to load your character, but less than 5 second loads between areas is with the new front end. And we've also unlocked a lot of potential for optimization in the future as well. So I think things will get much better in this regard pretty soon, and overall things should be a lot better. Now the risk here, of course, is when you do like giant changes like that, and you haven't like tested them against a giant community, like a full rewrite of the stuff. It's like who knows what bugs have been introduced. Like I'm sure there'll be a few crashes initially. We'll have a couple of teething things, but yeah, like I have to say that just like from running locally, it's a much better experience as far as all of that stuff is concerned.
Very nice. It sounds very good. So I'm excited to see this. I also had some issues with loading times, for example. So I'm excited to try that out actually.
Yeah.
Try, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, well, I have a bunch. I wrote down so much. Okay, so just cut me off. So with the new tiers of crafting orbs, how exactly do these work? I know that you said they drop, the normal, greater, perfect, and higher tier areas. Did they
What do you mean, how
drop
they
at the
work?
same rate as before? So a perfect orb of perfect orb.
So I'll tell you how it works.
Has
So,
less. Okay.
yeah. So so the actual theory that we had initially with this is like, okay, you've got so many damn transmutes. Like rather than having like 10 transmutes, I would rather have one transmute that was better than, that was as valuable as the 10 that would have otherwise dropped, like it's effectively a way to like, I don't want to just be picking up all this garbage all the time. Like give me something better that's going to work better. And at the same time, what it also does is it means that like one of the things that you get with crafting is like the need to like, just effectively do the same thing again and again and again until you get the result you want. We were like, what if we can have it so you do it 10 times less often, but it's 10 times like you have to do it but it's 10 times more powerful. I don't know if the number is actually 10 or not. Like there's an amount that's different, but effectively like this was the idea. So then we sort of looked at all the different currencies and we kind of said, okay, like at high levels, it's different for each currency when this kicks in. What we start to do is we start to say, okay, a percentage of the transmutes you would have gotten, and it's not actually implemented this way, but you can imagine it like this, and now being like stored up almost as like transmute juice that then drops as like a stronger transmute instead.
It's nice if it's
it doesn't actually work
deterministic.
that way, but you can effectively imagine it like that.
Rip.
And then, but what we did is we said, okay, what's still important is that you get enough base currency still so that you can at least craft your maps, because obviously you're not going to waste like a higher tier transmute on a map, right? It doesn't make sense to do that. So therefore, you still do drop occasionally the lower level ones, but ideally it's only like just enough to do map crafting, and then mostly and then less often you're getting the ones that are like more powerful, that are more chase. Now the ones for Chaos Orb and Exalt are pretty rare. Like those are very, very powerful effects. So those two are like kind of rare. Like I know the Chaos one, I think Chaos might even be rarer than Divine. Like Perfect Chaos, that is. So like the Perfect Chaos. Chaos is the really, really dangerous one. So like right. That was it. I can't quite remember what the where the Perfect Exalt is, but I think it's more common than Divine. But yeah, I have to check again. But effectively, like these ones are sort of designed to be like like those two are like very chase, but then, as I said, throughout endgame, you just won't get as much crap anymore. You'll get more useful things. And so that one is also interesting because there wasn't really like a mid. There was kind of this thing where like exalts were like, I don't remember the exalt divine ratio was. It was like 2001 or something. It was like some crazy
1 to 2000.
Jesus.
Yeah, exactly right. And so we're kind of like, there's no like sort of mid currency somewhere between I mean, I guess you got chaos, right? But like there was kind of was like not like enough middle ground currency there, so we kind of wanted to introduce stuff like that as well. Now, one thing you can do if you want is like if we're too aggressive with converting to the higher tier ones, you can down convert them, so you can turn a tier 2 transmute into more multiple T1 transmutes.
How about the
just
opposite?
in case you run out of them.
No.
How
So
about
that's
the
useful.
opposite, Jonathan? Can
No,
you?
you can't do the opposite.
That's a good place to pause. He looks really, really bad there. What the fuck is that face? Jesus. Yeah, my headset died, so had to. I can't really react if I can't hear.
Can't do the opposite. Can't go
okay.
up. That would be too easy, I think.
It
So and it
would.
would kind of mean that we
It
didn't
would.
get to control the drop rate so much. So
Right.
yeah, that's what we did there. So I think that it's going to be an interesting system. And one of the other things it does mean is that you kind of get the same power as what the ground items get in terms of the mod tiering. So when you see like a T5 magic, using a perfect transmute is giving you the same like benefit as what a T5 magic would be giving you in terms of the rolls, except that you're getting it in crafting. So yeah, that's kind of useful. It looks like we
Wait, you're here.
Joe there.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
but I'm here, so we're good.
brief black screen. And then following up
Okay.
on crafting, there's one other cool crafting system that seems to be implemented alongside all these additions in the old systems like Essences, and that is abyssal crafting.
Right,
And
yes.
it looks
Veiled.
very familiar to a Path of Exile 1 player.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious, do we need to make the journey to the depths every time we would like to do a craft? And how
You do. That is a thing.
It
That
is?
is something that was brought up. Like I think you probably won't need to do it so often that it's a big issue.
Bro, that is so dumb. They literally just made it so, yeah, you don't have to even talk to John anymore. Just click it. And now you have to go to a place?
But bear in mind that the it's just an area you can go to, right? Like
always
just on
available.
the map, you go there, you're right at the pit. Like it's not like a big like having to do combat or anything. You just you know, you once you've unlocked it, you can just go there easily.
it's like a hideout area, so it's as if we had, like June in our
Yeah,
hideout
yeah.
in PoE 1, but we just have to. go to
Yeah, I
the
mean,
area.
it is a load. Like you have to go to
Right.
like a separate area, but there's on the waypoint screen. There's a button. You just go there, and then you're there.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Interesting. And this is not just a league mechanic. This is going to be implemented into the core game permanently, or because I wanted to make
That
sure.
is that's the goal. I mean, obviously, whenever we add new leagues, the plan is, like, and have it later on. But of course, in the league version, right, you're finding an abyss every area, and then of course that means you're going to get more of the crafting currency way more often. Whereas when it's integrated as a league, I would imagine there'll be less of them. Like therefore we'll screw around with the drop rates and everything to make it work. But effectively, like you won't be doing this type of crafting as much once it turns into an evergreen mechanic. Or at least that's what I would imagine. But it always comes down to like how it actually plays, like, what we think. And the big benefit of leagues, of course, is we get to test things and then adjust them when we actually integrate them.
And with this league, there's also something really interesting going on that I don't think has happened in Path of Exile 1. There's an intentional mixing of mechanics, rogue exiles and the crack, bosses and the crack. All these different things are molding together.
Mhm.
It's usually, organic in Path of Exile 1.
Right.
You're going to juice your maps and then implement certain other leagues in
Right.
them and everything. Was that an intentional design choice? Is that something you're going to try to do more in PoE 2, or
Was that an intentional design choice that you intentionally made things combo together? Of course it was. The fuck do you mean? They literally sat down and Mark called it handcrafted interactions, yeah? How do you do that accidentally? Of course it's intentional. What is this question?
you just see the opportunity here with Abyss?
I like to do this a lot. Like, I'm a huge fan of making it so that the things combine together so that you get more interesting outcomes. And it was honestly just a lot of fun designing those. Like, hey, what would happen if this was there? What would happen if that was there? Like that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's just it's a fun one. I try to do that for even for other leagues as well, but we haven't necessarily done it as well as I think we've done it in this one. Like, one of the changes that
This does add some burden to future leagues, right? Because let's say you add, what would make sense? What's the league from PoE 1 that would make sense? Harbingers. So you add Harbingers. Now you have to then have Harbingers work with the Abyss as well, and you have to have an Abyss Harbinger or whatever. So every time you make a new league, you have to circle back to all of the interactions you made between leagues and refresh, see if there's something that makes sense for this one.
Things I wanted to
Which
have
is
happen
cool as
in
fuck.
The Ismeri and Wisp mechanic, for example, was that it would go to bosses. We actually, I believe that is getting in this time, by the way. So Wisps will be able to inhabit map bosses. Then, you know, so it's like, and all these things can come together. Wisps can also go down the pit. And then they inhabit, then all the monsters that come out are affected by them. There's things like that as well. Like, I really like all these little interesting.
That's
mechanical
cool.
combinations.
That's really cool.
Yeah, they're just cool little things.
Yeah, allows for more interesting outcomes. 100%.
Yeah, and then you've also think like, okay, what would the reward be if this happened and that kind of stuff too. So, you know, it's cool.
Yeah, Woody, are you
just
back?
be a quick. So this question did I miss because my laptop did not like this, so it was completely crashed. So sorry about that. Just to you don't have to give
I
an answer.
I probably need to get out of here pretty soon anyway. So you know,
okay.
like if you've got a couple more questions, I can answer them, but probably wrap it up pretty soon.
Anything else, Woody?
Let me just check my notes real quick. Yeah, it's just maybe like one last question about like the release schedule one more time, since you mentioned that you're gonna have like the the 2-month cadence with PoE1 and PoE2, and you want to have these 4-month cycles per game. But it looks more like the 5-month side right now. You kind of like really stretched it. I feel.
This one did go a little bit further, but look, we're not gonna get out of the correct month. Like basically what it means is that the PoE1 one is still going to come in at the same schedule that we intended, and we certainly don't want to
be on even months basically every time is the goal.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's important. It's just that this one, like, my goodness, getting an act in is certainly a challenge.
So it's every 2 months there's the fucking PoE
It's
thing.
also very hard to cut things as well.
That's gonna be rough
because like you have to have a sort of minimum for it to work. So that was the challenge. But yeah, certainly the months should be the exact month. So 4 months by looking at the calendar months from here, we should so yeah, December, right? Like in December you'll get a PoE2 expansion after this. We'll make sure of that.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I think there were like some sentiments where it's like, okay, can GG actually deliver this? And they seem very confident, and now it's already like the first release basically that comes after this announcement, and it's like
to be fair, well, yeah, anyway, yeah, I know it's a tough one, but hopefully there's enough content that people.
It's a good commitment, I think. So this is.
I mean, let's be fucking fair as well, yeah. If they say it's gonna be every 4 months, if it happens to be every 4.5 or every 5, right? Like sometimes, yeah, people should stop bitching. It's like, yeah, if it's in 4 months, but they don't quite get it, so it takes 4.5, stop fucking bitching. It's like, yeah, I don't know.
So I think this also gives like some kind of like structure for the players. They know what's coming roughly at least, and I think that's pretty important.
Sure. Right. Okay. Any last question for you?
Yeah, I have one last question. It's super simple. It has to do with trade. Looks great. I'm really excited for it. You said you can peruse the wares of the shop of the person you're buying an item from after, and even purchase items from that person, I believe. Yeah. Is there I saw there wasn't a confirmation window for the first item. Are there confirmation windows for second items in case you accidentally click something and then you just automatically purchase it? I'm really curious because I know that I do that.
It wasn't a thing that we'd considered, to be honest. I'm pretty sure you have to pick them up and put them down, or you can control click them. So
control
like so it sort of works that way. So effectively, that's what you're going to be doing. But you know what it effectively is? The interface for it as a buyer is effectively a shop, right? Like that's ultimately what it looks like. That's good. I'm really excited for the trade system. By the way, we didn't really talk about it here, but that's going to be a really big one, I'm sure.
It is massive.
Do you guys have any plans to bring it in game, or are you good with it being outside still on the trade site?
I do want to bring it in game.
Okay.
We actually have a prototype of this even.
Oh.
But it didn't quite make it for 030. The plan is to do that. Now, what I will say is that for me personally,
they got it.
I'm always going to be a website user because honestly, I find just the browser experience of using that to be better, quite frankly. Like in game, the main thing you get in game is of course discoverability. If you're a new user, it's right there. You get that kind of stuff. And but I think the browser experience is ultimately in terms of like the number of options you've got, and just like you can save a search easily and all that sort of stuff. Just by copying a URL, that kind of stuff is just like is I think makes that good. But yes, we do want to do it in game as well because people are very keen for that. So yeah, we'll get to that. It's worth mentioning that the website experience, like when you click the button, like your in-game character will travel, like in game. So effectively, like it's already sort of linked together in that way, and that means that if you're a console user, like if you're on your phone and you're like browsing through items, and then you click the button, like on your console, your character will go to the shop, and then you're there, right? So actually, that experience on console, like it's actually nicer to type on your phone to search for stuff than it is to type on a controller, right? So like I actually believe that the website experience is the way to go. But that being said, as I said, lots of people demanding in game, so we wanted to do that. We just didn't quite make it for.
It makes sense to put it in the game, and I think it's really good.
The MTX option for your shopkeeper too, like for future support.
You'd rather them fail on the delivery date than push an unfinished product. Yeah, so to an extent I agree, right? There is also a little bit of a you need a middle ground, right? Because they can just continue to not be done and continue to not be done, right? Like that's one of the things they've been saying is that if they don't have the deadline, well then, we can also get this in, we can also get this, and then, but what if it did this as well? Like then feature creep or whatever, and at a certain point you have to cut something and throw it out, like, and throw something at the players, right? So it's not just, it's coming soon in perpetuity, right? So in this case, I do think it makes sense with the deadline, but I also think people should be not so fucking anal about it, right? It's like if they miss it by a week, everybody's like, oh, "You promised it was." Dude, they didn't announce anything yet. They just like right now they said it should be in about 4 months, right? So it should be in December, he said. Yeah, so by now it should be like the 29th of December. Like, but people are gonna freaking if it's then the I don't know, the 13th of January, and it's like, bro, it's barely later, and sometimes shit happens, and people are also gonna if they say 4 months, and then they so bang it out the fucking 5th of December. Then it's like, but it wasn't. It was only 3.5. Like, bro, stop. Just. Yeah.
Facts.
Well, I'll tell you one MTX that I thought of, and I'm not sure whether it's getting in for this expansion or not, but I was really excited for this one because it's like, okay, people are going to be coming to your hideout now, right? There's going to be a place in your hideout where all those like random plebeians are going to be arriving. So we're like, okay, what we really need is a bouncer NPC who's like, here's the place where the party members and friends can come in. It's like, yeah, you're allowed, you come in, and all of the guys just coming here to trade, you can stay in the public zone. So I'm hoping we'll get that micro in for so you can.
That's kind of cool.
So you can use that, but that'll be fun.
I have to say this is such a GGG idea. But it's great.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure, and it was nice to meet you, Woody. I've never talked.
This is cool. All right, so there's the armor change. This guy, Dreamcore, well, you can't see because my face is there. He does pretty good stuff. He's talking about how good the armor will really be, and I'm very curious because I thought it was gonna be a bit shit because it's already in the game, but it's very underwhelming. The question is whether or not getting even more of it is gonna be good. It just seems like armor is really fucking good at mitigating small hits and not big hits, right? And because you are just meant to be playing with 75% elemental resist, elemental hits are just naturally big. So when you defend with armor first, your armor just gets slammed into the ground and really doesn't do anything. So even if you defend with 100% of your armor up front, unless you have copious amounts of armor, which maybe you're going to get, it just seems like it's gonna get smashed. That's what you're saying. Rather than miss by a week or two, them haven't released 15 hot patches because they. Yeah, true. It's just when it's they deliberately made a announcement of swapping from having a finished product to having a deadline, right? Because exactly what I'm saying with them feature creeping, or we can also get this, we can also get that, we can also get this. Like, was it a year almost the PoE 1 had it's the same league because they were just trying to get things in for the PoE 2 Amazon League or something. I think that was how it was, yeah. All right, but let's see if this guy knows a lot more than I do, but I'm just assuming because armor defense before elemental resistance that it's just gonna get clapped and you'll get like a 5% reduction or something stupid.
In the Third Edict update for Path of
a little bit
Exile
loud.
2, GGG are introducing modifiers that apply a percentage of your armor to elemental damage taken from hits.
Yes.
A widened access to this stat is supposed to improve one of the weak points of armor, that being that armor only applies to physical hit damage and does nothing by default against the other damage types.
The question is if you can get more than 100%, because then we're starting to talk, right? Like, let's say I can get 20,000 armor or whatever, and that's enough to make physical hits in general just not really be anything, even the big ones. That's enough to get a big mitigation on the big ones. In PoE 1, I had like a 30-ish, a little over 30k Fizz max hit, and I had almost 120k max elemental hit, right? So when armor then just gets smashed, if you could defend with like 200% of your armor, then maybe we're getting somewhere.
At the same time, we've seen the patch notes which include a Giant's Blood nerf that's going to cause a significant loss of life to the majority of mace builds. However, we have extremely limited information about the updates that are coming to the passive skill tree. There are lots of new wheels and notables, and beyond that, we also don't know how much the existing nodes will be changed. It's possible that there are a lot of improvements to the left side of the passive tree that we don't know about just yet, and part of that could be access to new maximum life clusters to offset the Giant's Blood change.
This is what I was talking about earlier, right? If you're a warrior, you're here. This is where you go, right? If you want to go monk, it's here. So if you're a warrior and you want to go quarterstaff, one of the best quarterstaff skills in the game is off the screen to the right. So you're going to have to travel through all of this to get there. That is a lot of travel nodes where all of this is mace stuff, all of this is crossbow stuff, all of this is bow stuff or spear stuff, right? And then you get to the quarterstaffs, right? You might be able to use some things, but you're already super restricted when you're playing warrior. That, yeah, you're gonna go mace, or you're gonna go whatever is gonna be in the Templar Druid zone, or you're gonna go whatever is in the duelist mercenary zone, right? Because you don't have this middle that you have in PoE 1 that you can traverse through, which has really good mods, right? Like if you traverse through the middle, you get easy access to like the unnatural instinct kind of thing, which is really good. And the node, the life node is really good. The evasion reel is pretty good. I mean, there's some good shit in here, but you don't have that option. So if we just assume that I want to play quarterstaffs, it's like either I have to go top or I have to go bottom, depending on what build I'm playing, what damage I'm going, what these things are. But like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So by level 28, you can start your freaking talent tree. And that is, some of these things might be ass. You might be able to go faster, or you might be able to go slower. There might be good things to pick up, right? That will change the path a little bit. But you're so restricted to staying in your zone, in your lane, that the skill things
that's
is just
all speculation right now. All we can do for now is go off of what we already have in the patch notes. So that begs the question, exactly how impactful is the armor change going to be?
I think it's going to be
Well, one thing to note immediately is that it appears that a large amount of the access to maximum elemental resistances is being removed or replaced in favor of armor applying
that's not
to
good.
elemental damage. For example, the Smith of Kitava's maximum fire resistance node is being replaced by a node that applies armor to elemental damage. Meanwhile,
which is kind of funny, right? Because for the Smith of Kitava, this is kind of dumb, in my opinion. I think the maximum fire resistance was really good, and it's kind of like the chieftain sort of thing, and I think it really should stay. But I get that wasn't almost every single warrior just playing Smith of Kitava. I don't necessarily think that's because Smith of Kitava was just, but it was also the new thing, right? So you should expect a higher playthrough. But I mean, they know better than I, right? But going with your body armor now grants 50% of armor to also apply to elemental damage is kind of weird, because in order to use this, you need to use a white armor, like white body armor. And most of your fucking armor comes from body armor, right? So you need a body armor with percent armor and flat armor in order to get a lot of armor. But in order to take this, where now your armor affects elemental damage, you're giving up a bunch of armor that I don't know where you'd get from. So this seems like dead on arrival, honestly. Unless there's something where it's like, oh, if you don't have, like, if your armor is white, body armor is white, you now get X amount of flat armor, whatever. If they add that, then sure, then you have a combo, right? But until then, it just seems kind of counterintuitive. It seems dead on arrival.
the Prism Guard notable on the passive tree that previously granted maximum elemental resistance now grants a percentage of armor to elemental instead. And it's likely that the small nodes leading to this cluster that also provided maximum resistances have been changed to no longer do so.
RIP.
Then there's the Inferno class unique belt, which will no longer be obtainable in patch 0.3.
Oh, really?
So overall, it seems that the access to maximum elemental resistances is being significantly toned down in favour of more access to armour applying to elemental damage, which will have one major impact on left side builds, that being that elemental damage over time is more dangerous as a result because armour cannot apply to it.
Oh, RIP.
But what about elemental hit damage? How does armor stack up against maximum resistances? Well, notably, the armor calculation for mitigating elemental or chaos hit damage is applied before resistances, which is inherently worse than how it functions in PoE 1, where it's applied the opposite way around. This is because armor provides more mitigation against smaller hits, and therefore a hit that has been mitigated by resistances first is significantly lowered to allow armor to provide much more mitigation than it otherwise would have done.
Yeah.
But in PoE 2, the armor formula is calculated first before resistances, which often leads to a large hit of damage, crushing your armor to the extent that it makes it provide a trivial amount of mitigation.
Yes.
But let's take a look at some numbers. To do this, we need to estimate how much armor you'll be able to reasonably obtain, and how much of the armor applying to elemental stat you'll be able to get.
Okay.
We've seen the modifier on body armor and gloves, and we also know that the modifier will appear on helmet and boots. We don't know about shields, but Jonathan did say that it will appear on all types of armor, so it should include shields too.
Okay.
So from these numbers, we can estimate that you may be able to get 20% on body armors, 15% on gloves, helmets, and boots, for an estimated total of 65% from your gear, more if shields can also roll the modifier and you're able to use a shield.
So 85.
And there are also soul cores that provide 30% to each elemental type, so I'll include one of each of those too.
But you can only use one, right?
Then we know that the passive tree will have at least one notable which grants 15% of this stat, and several notables to apply to each individual elemental damage type.
Oh wow,
but I don't want to include all of those, as their location on the tree may mean that they are simply too far away and too much of an investment to take all of them.
If you have to spend 4 points per elemental, you're spending 12 points just to get a total of 20% armor applied to all elements. Like, you're running out of points really quickly, I think. But it does seem like you should be, if this is 65 and we're assuming shield, then we're at 85, and then this, then we're at 115, right? and then we're adding 15, 130, and then 20 across the board, we're on 155. We're starting to talk then, but it's a lot of investment.
So let's say a late game setup may be able to get approximately 110% of this stat with very good gear. And note that Smith of Kitava can get more of this stat than other Ascendancies, but will also reach a lower amount of armor due to using a normal body armor, so that should somewhat balance out.
That's what I said.
Now for the armor total, once again we don't know if there'll be any new notables that drastically improve armor scaling on the passive tree, but I played an armor based character with a decent investment into armor scaling in patch 0.1, and I was able to reach around 25,000 armor. But that was with pre-nerf scavenged plating, which will provide a significantly lower, more armor multiplier at max stacks in 0.3. However, with new potential base types and unknown passive tree changes, let's say 25,000 armor for the purpose of some example calculations.
Yeah.
Now, monster elemental damage is balanced around an expected resistance of at least 75%, so it's typically much higher from monster hits compared to physical damage. For example, the casters that drop fire meteors in Act 2. During my testing with Veil of the Night, which sets your elemental resistances to 0, I took approximately 8,000 fire damage from one of these meteors from a normal white monster in a tier 15 map with no damage modifiers, almost one-shotting my 8,500 life character. So let's begin there. A character with 25,000 armor and 110% of armor applying to elemental damage would first mitigate an 8,000 fire damage hit by about 25% with armor, lowering the damage down to...
Okay. 8,000 fire damage, and already you're only going 25? I guess 8,000 is a lot? But it didn't even one-shot him, even though his resistances were 0. Okay.
5,953 prior to resistances. Then with 75% resistance, the character would take 1,488 fire damage after both layers of mitigation. That's the same amount of mitigation that you would have gained from having about 81% fire resistance.
Wow.
So in this scenario, the armor application has prevented the equivalent of 6 additional maximum fire resistance. However, the Meteor ability on this monster is a long wind-up skill that deals a lot more damage compared to other, faster monster skills. So what about a hit of 5,000 elemental damage?
Oh, that's going to be way
This
better.
time, the armor would mitigate about 35% of the damage, lowering it to 3,226, and then...
Fucking ads.
And then the 75% resistance would go to work, and the character would take 807 damage. In this example,
really
the mitigation provided by armor is the equivalent of an additional 9% maximum resistance. And you can see that as the hits of elemental damage decrease in size, the effectiveness of this modifier goes up massively. And that's where we need to discuss one of the strongest applications of this modifier in normal gameplay, and that's against damage as extra elemental map modifiers, monster skills that convert a portion of physical damage to elemental, and when used alongside damage taken as modifiers. This is because the armor formula is applied separately to each damage type. For example, let's say a monster has an attack ability that converts 30% of its physical damage to fire damage, and this monster is encountered in a map with a modifier that makes monsters gain a percentage of damage as extra lightning damage. Instead of the armor formula being applied once to reduce the damage of the hit, it's applied separately to each damage type.
Yeah, that's kind of
wild.
The
full armor calculation is naturally applied to the physical portion of the hit, and the armor is...
So whenever if it converts 50%, you're just... Can you crossplay? I think so. And I also think that your what's it called? Your progress carries over. I think you can play the same character on Xbox or PlayStation 4 and then play it on PC as well. Like you can swap. If you have it for, like, say, both Xbox, PlayStation 4, and PC, you can play the same character on each console. Path of Exile 2 fully supports cross-play and cross-progression between PC, PlayStation, and Xbox console. Yeah, so you can play cross-play and cross-progression. It's really good.
Is also applied to the fire damage and the lightning damage in 3 separate calculations.
This is wildly good.
This means that it's typically much more effective in these scenarios, because the damage is split into multiple different types, and armor is much more effective against the resulting smaller portions of damage. And really, this is where I see this modifier shining. It's when you're deep into maps running several dangerous modifiers, which will often include damage as extra modifiers. Characters with good investment into armor and armor applying to elemental will really be able to trivialize these types of modifiers. For example, the calculation from earlier with the fire damage meteor that deals 8,000 damage. If the map had this modifier that grants monsters 26% of damage as extra lightning, the meteor would deal 8,000 fire damage and 2,080 lightning damage.
So
the fire damage portion of the hit is mitigated as before, and the character takes 1,488 fire damage. However, the lightning damage portion of the hit is mitigated considerably by the armor calculation, lowering the damage to 896 before resistances, and the character takes 224 lightning damage after both layers of mitigation.
Jesus.
Keep in mind that this is quite a large base hit of damage. The majority of hits encountered in maps will be lower than this, and therefore the extra damage gained from these types of map modifiers will also be lower, so armor will mitigate a higher percentage of the extra damage as long as it's a different type from the base hit. And that's an important thing to mention here. If the extra
yeah, the cross progression is really cool. Like, I almost bought Diablo 3 for my Switch back in the day, but it didn't have cross progression. You couldn't even play the same, the same account, it seems like. So I didn't, because I'm not gonna play the game twice. Having cross progression is so good.
Damage was fire damage in this scenario, all of the damage in the hit would be fire, and therefore armor would only be applied once to the full hit, and it would provide much less mitigation because of the larger hit.
Oh shit, okay.
Now, overall, the armor applying to elemental stat can provide a decent amount of mitigation against small to moderate sized hits, but it essentially just makes armor better at what it was already good at doing, which is protecting you against chip damage. And based on what we've seen of the passive tree changes, it appears that some of the maximum resistance scaling has been replaced by this stat, and aside from elemental penetration, the armor applying to elemental stat is almost always inferior to maximum resistances.
Oh.
Because whilst it may provide more mitigation against smaller hits, those are not the hits that are going to kill you.
True.
Against the larger hits, the max res is a lot more favorable because it provides a constant level of reduction.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that armor does nothing against elemental damage over time. At low levels of investment, the armor applying to elemental stat will provide almost unnoticeable levels of mitigation, but with good investment you should be able to fill the improved mitigation, especially during mapping. But how much investment will it take, and will it be worth it in the end? That's a question I feel will be answered in the coming weeks after 0.3 has launched. However, the real problem with armor that wasn't mentioned in the reveal or addressed in the patch notes is that it's simply not good enough to protect you against some of the overtuned physical hits deep into mapping. This could be solved by an improved access to additional physical damage reduction, or a slightly improved armor formula, or base types with higher base armor values, or ideally a combination of these changes.
Yeah.
An improvement to life scaling wouldn't go amiss either. But that's going to be it for this video. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.
Okay, so it does seem like it's gonna be better than I thought it was going to be. I honestly thought it was gonna be El Pupu. But it seems not. It seems like it has its place, and it'll actually do something. Now, it is worse than max resistance, so in that regard, it is El Pupu, but it isn't just strictly just bad, I guess. But he was working with 25k armor, which I don't know how much you have to invest for. That sounds like a lot, but maybe it isn't. And he was also working with 110%, which definitely is a lot of investment. That is 3 soul cores, right? So one, you got to get the soul cores, but you couldn't just trade for them. But it's also 3 sockets you're not getting as anything else, right? And those 3 sockets could have been increased armor. So are you realistically able to get 25k armor without the extra armor scaling you would get from physical gems, right? Like physical sockets or whatever they're called, right? Like, I think each of them is 20% increased, right? So you'd have to find 60% increased armor scaling somewhere else. And just assuming that's going to be available on the tree, when you also have to pick armor convert or armor apply to elemental on the tree as well, I mean, you're going to have to sacrifice something, right? And that's, if you're not going to be less tanky, that's going to be damage. So new base types, though, that could mean higher armor bases, though. So maybe that'll, I mean, flat is very powerful, right? So that could make up for it. It's going to be cool. It's going to be interesting to see. I think I'm going to try and play 2 characters this time. I'm going to play one off stream, play one on stream. And once we get to mapping or whatever, I'll pick my favorite and we'll go. Something like that. We'll see. I'm not sure. But yeah, I have to get off. I need a shower. And yeah, this is going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be back tomorrow. I gotta have a think about what we're doing, because RimWorld, yeah, we lost Sam today, which was sad. And honestly, would Frodo really have gotten to Mordor without Sam? He wouldn't, right? So is our grab ship really gonna be able to function without Sam? Probably not. And PoE 2 is this Friday, and we're probably gonna take entire Friday to do patch notes, but I don't think I have an entire PoE 2 stream in me for tomorrow as well. So we got to figure out. Maybe I'll res him. Maybe I won't. Resing him is cheating, so I don't like to do that. We could also, I mean, we could read the patch notes tomorrow and then spend Friday looking in POB. That's a thing we could do. That would make sense. But I don't know if I can get 6 hours to go in POB for PoE 2. We could practice a little bit, log in and see our characters. That's the thing. I'll figure it out. I'll think about it. Should we play Fallout tomorrow? That's so... let's just do 1 day of Fallout, I guess. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll figure out what we're doing. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.